Never. No, as a matter of fact, people asking for where are the squad. So for those who are asking, and there's quite a few, there's got to be well over 20 individual inquiries about why there hasn't been any squad shows. They haven't abandoned me. No. They haven't quit this series. They haven't anything. We've been taking a little break. I mean, moving in here was a mother effort. So I canceled one of the, in terms of like our schedule, I screwed it up because I had to move.
Yeah.
Had I not moved, we would have been right on schedule.
I've been holding out for a nicer dressing room.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry's really...
Sorry, Jer.
His list of demands just keeps getting longer. It's a lot to deal with.
Well, that's on you, love.
Tell me about it.
I see him a couple times every quarter. I don't know.
I see him a couple times an hour.
So, before we start, you sure you don't want something? Coke, Diet Coke.
I'm good.
I'm good.
You're good.
We're really upset about the Oreos. That was on our rider.
I'm having a dry show over there today.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I came equipped for her, too, but she's being dry. She's
Oreos, no booze.
I know. So, before we begin, the syrupy start of the show, we were honored by having an expose, an article, an interest piece, whatever you want to call it, done in Pittsburgh Magazine after I just told the world and through the internet that I didn't want anyone voting for us for any of those ridiculous contests or any of that nonsense. We love everybody. Just a lot of interest in competition. And then Lori Jakela from Pittsburgh Magazine did a rather nice write-up about the podcast, and it certainly reflected well on the squad shows. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I honestly believe that we've done 8 shows together. Had that not happened and taken this show in a very honest and unvarnished way like I had never done before, that all this cool stuff that's really happening would not have happened for us. At least it wouldn't have happened to us so in an accelerated fashion. So I want to thank all 3 of you.
Yeah. I like that.
This is like a... Do y'all see what I'm dealing with here? Do you see what I'm dealing with here?
I also think it's shocking in the article that you talked about Kiss and Paul Stanley. I didn't even know you liked them.
They asked me.
That was shocking.
People keep asking. I keep talking.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's part of the history of the Boogie Street. We're going to relaunch Boogie Street clothing and all this stuff. We're not trying to sell anything on this podcast, so we're not going to talk about specifics. But the brand is coming back because I keep getting asked, well, hey, can I buy this? I don't have anything to sell. So, I mean, we're going to give people what they're asking for and see how much they really want that. But it's flattering that my past is somehow coming back in a positive way to be revisited in my life. And it's kind of cool because my kids are able to now kind of see a different point of all of that. Making sense. They remember it slightly when they were little, but now they're able to see it in a different way. So,
and how often does that really get to happen where your past comes back to you?
I was going to say the same. God, that must be nice.
But in a good way, right?
God, that's got to be
never
nice.
happened to me.
but in a good way. Yes, I've had my negative past haunt me many times in my life. I totally get it. So, but squad, we have reconvened. We are now officially in session. Episode 9.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we're
lucky number 9.
Yeah,
and that is my lucky number.
I know it's funny. I want to share this because we never really get negative comments. We've had a few, but it's rarely anyone seeks me out to intentionally send me a negative comment. Maybe I'm just lucky. Once in a while, I will scrub the YouTube channel or scrub our Facebook channel for like spam and things. But and negative comments sometimes, although they might sting a little bit, they're positive if you find something, not take something out of it. But one guy actually said to me, he basically said. He basically inferred that I must have done something to piss all 3 of you off that you didn't want to come back on the show, or that we had offended enough people and offended the wrong people.
I love that.
That we now have squelched it.
I love that.
And I basically said, well, fuck you. Number 1, you're wrong. But then I calmly just said, well, thanks for the feedback. I said, but. Not to disappoint you, but there's a squad show scheduled in a few weeks. Have a great fucking day.
I love that. The natural assumption wasn't that we were taking a break, but that we got canceled.
It had to have been something more dramatic.
We're either all fighting or we got canceled.
We're on the right track.
That we got canceled.
We're doing good.
That's basically, I think, what it was. That we got canceled.
And I think what is, we can't forget that we were all 4 here. We just were Yeah, we
Different
were all
capacity.
here not too long ago. I
Yeah.
get that
With
was
James.
a few months
a
ago,
different
but we
capacity.
had
So-
James with
And
us.
I was going to go there, but I was just, I figured I'm not dealing with a Mensa member on the other side of this email message stuff. I figured, why go into that complexity? But yes, in reality, we had a semi-squad show. We merged the two series, which Julia happens to participate in both of them. So she was like kind of just there. You know what?
Yo.
Like Fred would have made the Sixx, right? Ideally,
Yeah,
if Fred was
That's what we
here.
wanted initially, and then
Yeah.
Fred blew us off.
But
Well,
Fred's mad at all of us, so he won't.
Actually, he's not. He wanted me to send his love, as corny as that is, but that's what I'm supposed to say. Fred sends his love. He's
But
out.
somebody might say that. Somebody might be like, you know what,
Of course.
Fred
Yeah.
hates the squad.
He's on that list of people that we pissed off.
Yeah.
Got us kicked off the air.
He's busy on like what I just saw a picture
He's
of
having a
him.
blast. Time
He's
of
like
his life.
like 20 stories up with John 5 at a racetrack or something. I don't know. It looked like they were looking at their tour buses, I guess, or something.
John
like that.
5 is, I don't have to tell you who he is, but for those who don't know who John 5 is, he's just an unbelievable guitar player, a rock star in his own right, but now he's out with Zombie, I think, and that's like he's kind of like a hired gun. He's played with so many people. But Fred and him formed a pretty good friendship a long time ago, and every time they have the ability to be around each other, it's a little chaotic and a little nuts.
I could see that.
I think Fred and everybody's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
It might be just Fred.
Sorry, Freddie. But
Fred knows.
why I'm happy is that him and I had this conversation that, again, it's very specific, so I won't go real deep into it, but he was there through the Boogie Street years to see all this stuff happen with Kiss and the Paul Stanley thing with me and seeing how excited I was, because that was my thing as a kid. He was a Motley Crue nut. That was just his thing. He loved that band growing up like I loved Kiss, and the age difference, right? But to see him get to work with his favorite like rock god, Nikki Sixx, is like ridiculously ironic. It all makes sense. It's the Boogie Street thing. Whatever that Boogie Street thing is, it just kind of showered a lot of good stuff on people around it. And he's out there now living like his best life, as the youngsters say, right?
Aww.
He's having, and apparently Nikki really digs him. They're really hitting it off. Like,
That's awesome.
and Fred usually hits it off really well with his, the artist he works for. Generally, who doesn't like Fred, right? And Nikki and him really, Nikki told Fred, hey, you can bring your camera to the shows. Fred's got his Nikon side stage, so between setting up the guitars and doing all his work, he's grabbing photos, and Nikki blesses it.
That's awesome.
And uses it in his social media and Motley Crue's website. They're using his stuff.
That's
it's
really
nuts.
cool.
So that's a lot of trust too, because
He sees it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
they
really
they
cool.
really trust Fred not to.
Dangerous assumption.
Overexposed.
Yeah.
The guy
and not
just
even-
showed up one day in my office unannounced, and I have no idea how he ever got in because I didn't give him a key. But there was, just showed up and he never left. And that was the case right there. That was sitting in the middle of my 2,300 square foot office.
That's how you met Fred. He just came in.
Oh, dude! If I hadn't said that, I'll tell you. He
Can you
basically.
believe it would happen any other way?
I know, right? Like, how else do you meet Fred? And then he just shows
I
up
can't
and
see him
won't leave.
coming in for an interview and being like, "I would like."
Oh no!
to
It
work
wasn't
with
an
you."
interview. Do you ever?
No, that's what I mean.
Oh,
It definitely was. He came in. And
So I didn't really even know him. We had crossed paths years prior, local bands in Pittsburgh. It's Nick Catney's Black Label Society. Goes, hey, my guitar tech, who's no longer with us, he sets up. He's in town right now. He's looking for a gig. So if you have a guitars to set up, he's a great guy to use. And I had a bass that came in from BC Rich. His mother. They sent me a bass. I was a new dealer. They sent me a bass and they never finished the bass, so all the fret wire was jagged. So if you played it, you cut your fingers. So I called Fred, like, hey, this is the thing. I'm Eric McKenna. I'm starting this gig, Boogie Street. He goes, yeah, I'll be up tomorrow on my way to work. He stopped in, walked in the door, said, how you doing? Never talked to me. Went over, found the bass, set it up.
Right to business.
Set it up, went out to got some tools.
I
Spent about
respect
20
that.
minutes. I didn't say a word to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is kind of weird. And he sat down on my couch that I had in there. And my kid's looking at him, and I'm looking at him, and he's kind of like a little different. And he's not saying anything. And he goes, yeah, you're good to go, man. I said, well, what do I owe you? And he's like, no, we're good, man. You're friends with Nick, and you're friends with, we know each other. We're good. If you're in need again, call me. I got to go to work. Like I said, well, what? I said,
Like, this wasn't just work.
do you want to, I said, dude, do you want to I'm going to order all these custom guitars from Washburn, like hundreds of them. That's my plan. Do you want to set up a thing while you're off the road? He goes, yeah, we'll figure that out. I'm in. I said, cool. I said, well, here's my number. And I gave him my card, and, I scratched his number down and so forth if I didn't have it or whatever. And then he went away. That was a Thursday. I come into Boogie Street Saturday afternoon just to do some work. I walk in, and I'm like...
He's already there.
He wasn't there. Strike me dead if I'm lying to you. That road case was there. 3 to 4 cases of sealed Jack Daniels was in there.
Oh my God.
A bunch of baseball cards in little plastic sleeves laying around everywhere.
That's amazing.
A bunch of bags of like iced tea that were laying around there. Guitar picks everywhere.
Fucking Fred.
That's what I thought.
A toolbox, like a craftsman toolbox with a bunch of shit, like a workman's toolbox, and a couple uneaten bags of Fritos laying on top of the road case over there. And then, and basically I had no idea what was going on. My door was locked. No.
I was about to say, how do you...
Did he break in?
My door
He probably
was
had
locked.
his toolbox there and just...
What I think he did was he came in Friday and went through the main door, and the people at Froggy Radio let him in. They saw a guy with a leather vest, Black Label Society on the back.
He belongs here.
Yeah. Long hair. That's the guitar guy down there. And Fred probably said, hey, I need to get into Boogie Street. I got to bring my stuff in. And Fred never called me, never told me it was coming. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's great.
This is like one of the best stories I've ever heard.
That's how Fred came into my life, and he's never, and that road box has never left me. I have been, no matter where I've been, that road box is kind of, and he never used it outside of setting up guitars at Boogie Street. Because every time you go on tour, a new band will buy you a road box. That's the Black Label and Ozzy Osbourne road box from the prior years. Yeah.
Now, was that like 15 years, 20?
20. On the back it says, don't flip, asshole. Because I guess when you load them into the trucks, they sometimes will turn it on its side. If you turn that on its side, all the drawers in there get all fucked up. So it says, don't flip, asshole. But
that's awesome.
Very Black Label. But that's how Fred entered my life. So there you go.
Sounds about right.
Wow. Yeah, I was about to say.
That was a great story.
Very accurate.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, iced tea, Jack Daniels, nothing.
Fritos.
Fritos. And baseball cards.
Baseball.
And
so random.
He was doing baseball cards on eBay or something, and he just thought that was a good... Oh, strings. Lots of strings. Lots of strings. Lots of strings.
You're like, what happened here?
But he set up... We've estimated... We have records, but they're loose records. We estimate he set up between 3,000 to 4,000 guitars in Boogie Street over the... And I remember, he's on the road most of the time. So this is all done during his breaks.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, we moved some shit through there, for sure.
Wow.
But, yeah, he's always been with me. And then that's like the friendship and all like Courtney stuff. So, enough about Fred. Sorry, Fred.
It's like he's here with us.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
So concludes the Fred segment of our...
When you're like, how...
Y'all still with us?
Is it on Rogan's episodes where he, like, if you, like, look at the bottom, like, you can, like, see, like, different, like, what the topic is or whatever, like a lot of like
timestamps.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, I'm looking
Fred. So we were gonna, not that we all have a heavy plan, but generally we have rough ideas of what we want to do with the shows here, because we've gone certainly off the deep end so many times on this show.
Oh yeah,
in a great way. But Jerry brought up this topic of ego, and Rocco Koza and I have bantered that around, but not deeply. In some of our shows, we even did it on our radio show. We were talking about entrepreneurship, right? Which is just, if you start your own business, do you brand it? Do you put a lot of yourself in your brand? Are you afraid of like maybe pissing off some of your customers? And I'm of the belief that I put everything about me out there. If someone doesn't want to work with me to be their realtor, that's good. You have to. I'm fine with that. But the ego is a thing, man. And we were talking about this past week about how much ego should you put into your business. Is it a good thing, bad thing? Can it get out of hand? Naturally. But so I'm just coming off of a conversation on ego, but Jerry was talking about being a prisoner of our ego. Yeah. And I'd like to start out with that.
All right. Yeah, it's like a philosophical kind of, I guess, psychological thing that I've been just kicking around in my head, is that I think a lot of people spend their lives in an ego prison. That's kind of the way I think of it, where everything about our lives revolves around us and our wants and our desires, and beyond that, we're just projecting ourselves onto other people, and instead of really connecting with the other people in our lives and really forming deeper bonds and relationships, we're really just kind of using people like mannequins, and we set these people up in whatever way that we need to play out whatever like psychological melodramas we've got going on with ourselves, things we never worked through in our past. And rather than really connecting with other people in our lives, we're really just kind of interacting with ourselves the whole time, you know?
Wow.
And there's a psychological premise for that, the idea that, like, you know, in using our senses like sonar, that we're really like projecting parts of ourselves out into the world. But rather than transcending that and making a real connection with the world around us, and really like making ourselves vulnerable and putting ourselves out there in a real and meaningful way, particularly in our personal relationships, we're really just projecting ourselves onto every relationship, every interaction that we have. And we really, for the most part, and there's definitely exceptions, but for the most part, a lot of us have really walled ourselves in, and we're just interacting with ourselves all day long and playing out, I think of them like psychological melodramas, things from our past that we've never resolved. And I kind of just picture it, the same circumstances playing out, you know what I mean? I even think I wrote part of it down, the idea that there's just the same old characters in our lives with different catchphrases.
I remember
that. That's deep. Yeah. All right.
And I think... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Paper, rock, scissors.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
I was just going to say that, like, I think that kind of, like, leans into the idea that there will oftentimes be, like, the same stories playing out in your life. Like, and it's kind of like, how long does it take you to learn a lesson?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And can you learn a lesson when you're really, like, when you don't have any fresh interaction with anybody, and you're not really opening up to other people? You're just kind of fitting other people into these expectations we have for our own selves and our own lives. Yep. And, like, the things that we've never really felt like we've achieved in our lives or gotten past with ourselves. And we play out the same scenarios and circumstances with people over and over again in our lives.
Yeah. Well, and same with, like, if you're talking about, like, it being a cage that you're in, I'm amazed at how many people anymore that, like, the whole ego prison thing, it does prevent you from developing deeper relationships, just because every time you interact with somebody, it's like, what can it do to feed your world, like your ego bubble, whether it's like to get a date or a connection. And everybody you come in contact with, you're really, I think you live a much happier life if you realize you're kind of there to serve in so many ways. You're not there to get. So, like, anytime you interact with somebody, you cannot assume that you're going to get something from it. And if you don't, then you kind of throw that interaction or those people away. So you're not you're not gaining anything. You're losing what that interaction could have brought you, because you're like, I didn't get the date. I didn't get the job. I didn't get the praise that I wanted from this person, or this person's usually so funny on social media. They weren't funny when I talked to them. Well, not everybody's here to serve your world and feed your world. A lot of times your ego thinking that, like you said, the world revolves around you. Not only does that create unhappiness and anxiety because it's a constant, like, grab, but it's also, it really prevents you from, like you said, creating anything meaningful. You just look at everything like it should be giving you something. Yeah.
And I think that it leads to never really having that fulfillment that we feel like we need in our lives, because we're totally closed off to experiencing our lives and having a true connection with the other people around us, because we're not really interacting with them, a lot of us, you know. And I think to some extent we all deal with that, and it really takes a lot of, like, emotional maturity and growth and a lot of work to get past that, you know, to really to sort of, like, I guess, more meet people halfway, and have a real interaction with someone, and have a meaningful interaction with someone, and, like, just really listening to someone when they talk, rather than always considering how this plays into the next thing I'm going to say, how this fits into, like, how I'm looking at my world. I think it's really limiting, you know. It's really limiting for personal development, and I think it leads to constant frustration, like the fulfillment that we expect, like kind of like Cassidy was saying, expecting to either get something out of this or that I'm going to further myself in some way. Like we're always chasing this fulfillment that this is going to work out for us, you know, that we're going to finally get what we want out of these relationships and out of our lives. And we just, when we're stuck in that cycle, that prison, we can't, because we're really just kind of locked up, isolated in ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think social media too, you know, there's such a spin on that where people are saying how negative it can be because of that, because you could take it, you're connected to everybody in the world practically on social media or parts of the internet, and if you're stuck in that ego prison, in that ego bubble where you're constantly trying to feed it and you're not trying to get like real growth from what you can get from looking within. Like you can get on social media and use it as such a positive thing, but if you're looking at it, and I think that's where it comes from, like the people doing better on social media creates jealousy, it creates anxiety, when you could just be making that connection in your brain to like something different. Like if you don't have it, that doesn't necessarily make you worthless or a bad thing. It's why a lot of the time I think we can't be happy for people, and why a lot of the time we can't be happy ourselves, because like you said, there's no true fulfillment in that. You'll never get there that way.
You?
No, I was
Your commentary on this bleak perspective
Thoughts
on the human
this?
condition.
well,
this is
you know,
so
what's
good.
interesting
So
is that
good.
I actually thought like when you brought up social media, one of the things that I considered was just the concept of how you can't like buy anything with likes. That like it's not real currency, you know what I mean? That people have this like, but it's become this form of social currency where people like look at themselves in this comparative way. And like I find myself doing it sometimes, because I'll see people that I know have maybe their own like small business or their own you know, brand they're trying to push or project they're working on or whatever, and I'll look at like how well their socials are doing, and it's like and then like I'll look at someone else that's just like some girl that's posting, you know, a random picture, and like it's got like 100, 200, 300 likes or whatever. But I also feel like that's kind of like, there's no reason to downplay someone's success or almost like look at that metric as like a way to like, you know, boost someone up either. Like it just is what it is. Like I think I think some of it's generational. I think some of it is based on, you know, like you said, kind of like you can be happy for someone and just sort of, you know, even if you notice someone's doing really well, like if you're like, okay, this, you know, this artist is always like, man, their socials are just popping. Like they're always getting tons of attention. Like I wonder how they did that. I wonder if it's just simply based on them being out there in the world more. Like I know some people that are like, you know, doing really well on social media, but they also travel a lot. They like, you know, they get out there a lot. They physically themselves meet a lot of people. And so I don't know that they're actually like, and I think that some of it is, you know, doing the actual work of studying the algorithms and, you know what I mean, like really working on that building process. Mm-hmm. But again, I think it becomes this like almost lifestyle obsession for some people. And it's just another like avenue for what Jerry's talking about, where we are finding these, you know, additional ways to wall ourselves in and look at every interaction as how it can benefit us in some way, whether it's an actual interaction in person or whether it's an online interaction or whatever the case may be. And I think that it does create like a limiting component of how we're able to interact in the world, whether it is virtually or in person, because there's this constant almost like form of comparison and how it relates to me, you know what I mean? Right. As opposed to just simply being in the world, whether it's, you know, the world online or the world in the room or whatever, because you can think the same way about people. Like there are some people that just every time they walk into a room, like it's kind of like the room lights up and you know, everything they say seems to like hit a certain way and people laugh, and they, you know, they, like you said, the person that makes someone laugh every time, or the person that, you know, just always knows that has that like spot on commentary of like what, you know, is happening in current events or what's going on in, you know, this said, you know, section of your social circle or whatever. Like there's just like this, I don't know, like a constant form of comparison. And I think that's a big part of what creates that social media and like, you know, social anxiety for a lot of people is that there's like this, instead of just like viewing themselves as they are, viewing other people as they are, it's all about how does this relate to me? And then if you have any kind of insecurity, any kind of feelings of inferiority, feelings of like inadequacy or whatever, then that becomes these like bricks that you just kind of build up around you to, you know, constantly feel like you're not measuring up, constantly feel like, you know, you've like failed before you even begin. And then it becomes this idea of like, it becomes almost impossible to want to relate to people interpersonally and on a real level because you've already decided that you're not like worthy.
Right.
Or that you're
it's
not
like painful to.
Yeah. Like that you're not really even worth meeting in the first place. You're not even really worth that interaction. And I think a lot of that does come from a place of just feelings of like, you know, just not measuring up.
And it stops motivation right in its tracks to become who you want to be. Because for one thing, I think it gets very confusing when you're seeing all of that and you're taking it in as, well, I want that because that person seems happy, but you might not. You're just seeing them seeming happy with, or hopefully they are happy with what they have. But I mean, then you're never really like looking inward and finding out what you really want and taking that step to get there. It's one thing to be inspired by somebody, but it's another thing to look at somebody and be like, you know, they have what I want. And I feel like if I try to get it, it just seems so far out of my world, you know? So I think it, like I said, that like you were saying, it kind of just stops that from that motivation. And then once again, like you're just not fulfilled. You're taking it to a completely different world. When, like I said before, I think social media could be such a great thing. Like you're connected to so many people. You can see so many things. You can get inspired by so many people and so many things. But if you're already, you know, not letting that ego down, like that wall down, then it's just going to take you to a very bad place. And there's going to be just the feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, non-motivation, anxiety, everything. So, well,
and I do want to address that I think that is encouraged, particularly in the United States of America. The focus, and we've gone here plenty of times before, the focus on materialism, because if people are out there happy and fulfilled and they're having meaningful interactions together and they're pursuing either personal fulfillment or emotional fulfillment, like fulfillment in their personal relationships, you know, spiritual, whatever it is, they're not focused on the next phone that's coming out with the better, you know, 18,000 fucking million pixels.
They're not buying as much shit.
Yeah, you know, they're not trading in their vehicle that they purchased only 2 years ago for a brand new vehicle. I think that it is being monetized. And what Cassidy, what you were just talking about with social media, I started thinking about my experience on Instagram. I swear to God, in like the last 3-4 months, I watched Instagram go, and I think it coincides with Instagram being acquired by basically Facebook and turned into this bigger meta company. Like Instagram, I remember Instagram used to be mostly pictures of people doing something in their lives and then having some kind of commentary. And in the last couple months, I've even commented on it. Like, I'll scroll Instagram just to kind of like check in, see what's going on. And most of it is ads. Most of it is just, it's nothing like that anymore. Like I clearly remember Instagram used to be just pictures of people I knew or acquaintances or people I met through the music scene. Right. And it was all like pictures from their account. It was them in their daily lives doing what they do. Like that's what Instagram used to be. And if you look at it now, it's just inundated with ads and games. And I swear to God, I said to Julie not long ago, I think I was like, Instagram is quickly becoming mainly a way that consumers of sex work connect with sex workers. It's like a huge part of like what's going on Instagram. And I know that eventually everything becomes monetized. You know, every new frontier becomes conquered by the corporate giants, and they find a way to just focus on monetizing it. But yeah, I really do. I wanted to address that. I think in this country, like, it's encouraged, like the whole isolation, not connecting with each other. It did not get any better with COVID, you know. Yeah, because, you know, if you have a hole in your life, then you need to fulfill that need. You need to supplement that need. And in this country, a big part of that is materialism, is food, is alcohol, is drugs, is in some cases gambling.
Left one out. Competition. Competition is what, in my opinion, is ruining social media. I left competition once I became an entrepreneur. I got into entrepreneurship because I had enough of sales contests and the corporate crap that, you know, it goes on. It's just that invariably there is a competition within the organization that you're in, whether it's, I mean, there's always elements of it, right? I'm not saying it's bad or good. It was just enough for me. So doing my own thing for so long and not having a competitive bent to what I was doing every day was fucking amazing, right? And now it seems like, unless I'm viewing it wrong, social media now has been showing us the worst part of capitalism. When capitalism creeps into the personal parts of all of our lives, it's taken social media now created an element of competition between human beings of all demographics. I mean, there really isn't any lanes anymore. We're all on this thing, and whether you like it or not, the currency that's out there, whether you pay attention or not, the currency that's out there is the likes, is your presence, and you're being evaluated of your worth on the social platform in the eyes of others based upon how many followers you have and how many likes your posts get. That's the worst of capitalism, that it creeped into our personal life, everybody's personal life, not just the folks that want to monetize it. They took that model, Jerry, of monetizing and applied it to fucking everybody. And that whole competitive thing now is, in my opinion, what's fucked up all social media. We're competing against each other for societal worth. I mean, we can all sit back and say, oh, that shit don't bother me. But you know what? The bottom line was we're comparing ourselves in the most elemental ways to everybody who's on there. And it could be great. If it was if it was a communications tool, I mean, this is one moment where this moron here is actually thinking, well, if there was some way to actually governmentally control this thing as a communications utility, and that's all it is, right? First off, would it be popular? I don't know. Is that a human competitive thing keeping it popular? I don't know. But I'm saying if it was just a communications tool, I think you wouldn't have all of the crazy human emotions and the envy and the ego that comes with being in a competitive environment when you really don't want to be. Now, you can say, my mom got on there, she doesn't look at it that way. Yeah, but she's in the very minority few.
Yeah.
Most of the people that are on there actively are well aware of how the structure works, how you're being graded and evaluated based upon your social worth. You may pretend like it doesn't, you're not entering into that, but you know what? By posting a lot and interacting a lot, you just naturally wash yourself right into the system. That's where I think capitalism has gone wrong and has fucked up social media for everybody. And
they further it by, not only we've talked about this before, where like, people, it's almost like they will put out there like, oh, it's a highlight reel. These people aren't really happy and whatever they're posting about this, and it almost bodes well for them if they push further and keep turning that wheel where we get on there and we hate people instead of, like you said, social media could be such a great thing. There are younger people that, even in our age group, we didn't get a lot of representation and things like that. And you kind of had to grow up with like your small town.
Right.
And you didn't, if
we had MTV.
Yeah, that's right. We did have MTV. Yeah.
But that's not interactive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like we've always said, like when they're like, oh, it's a highlight reel, like, yeah, no shit, it's supposed to be. Like, what do you want people to put on social media? But they almost
This is my bad hair day.
Right. Well, did you guys ever hear of Be Real? I just got this thing. Speaking of social
what is Be Real?
Be Real is
it a social network or is it?
Yeah, it's social. It's a social media app that was created to create more authentic, push forward more authentic posts. Which, once again, we've talked about that. I don't care about that shit. If you put a filter on yourself, if you're posting like the best part of your day, great. I think that's wonderful. But I just thought it was cute. So, and I'm regretting it now because it's what it is.
It's depressing.
I know, like I don't want to see
It's
that.
like somebody in curlers and like.
So what it is it's called Be Real.
Their bathrobe, getting the mail.
Cleaning up my dog shit.
It's very I don't want to say intrusive, but what it is I think once a day, twice a day, Be Real notifies you, and you have a 2-minute countdown to take you. It'll take your front and your back camera.
That's like, control
of whatever
That's
you're
creepy
doing.
as fuck.
Yeah, it is.
I just thought like, oh, you get a picture every day of what you're doing, and you don't have time to like.
No, I don't like that.
So like if you're at work or whatever. But I'll be like taking a pee or something, and then Be Real notifies me, and I'll be like, "Shit, I have 2 minutes to like wash my hands."
Wrap it up.
So
it's like someone going like,
yeah. Now, obviously, you can put like it's not going to just take the picture. You have 2-minute countdown to take the picture.
I mean, that's insane.
And
It's so
you can
weird.
either choose to post it, or if you take it again, it will tell whoever. And I don't have any.
This is a redo.
Yeah,
this is not authentic.
Yeah,
second take.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was cute
I got 2 minutes to run up to the roof and pretend like I'm on vacation.
So what about a social media platform that does not count like interactions, like does not count like
it doesn't count
do you-
interactions.
Do you guys remember that there was like it was like a year or two ago, or maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they were going to pull all the likes off of Instagram, like you weren't going to be able to see them anymore.
Yeah.
But it didn't go well. Like people
People
Yeah.
freaked out.
They wanted
Right.
to.
I want my life.
Yeah, pretty
and,
much.
And why do you think they freaked out? Why do you think the reason?
Because people
why?
don't know what to follow. Like if they like something, they want to know if like 1,000 other people liked it. I mean, is
Interesting.
it okay if I like this? I don't know. I better
Really
you know.
hard not to play into that ego
Of
gratification.
course it is.
Yeah.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
That
I'm
fucking
absolutely guilty. I try
gerbil.
not to be, but I am.
Gerbil getting that little feeder pellet that's
Yeah.
got the little bit of heroin in it or whatever.
Well, it's like the whole Elon with Twitter thing. People freaked out when he was saying he was gonna he you know, if people hear any type of censorship or regulation, they flip out. And he was saying, he's like, I'm not going to, I'm just going to get rid of all these bots because there's so many
They're not humans.
Yeah, there's so many fake accounts on there that
Right.
are like
Right.
that can be made and generated to
Manipulate.
Yeah.
public
manipulate
opinion.
the opinion.
Yep.
So he said, I'm
Yep.
getting rid of that. I want it to be a real
100%.
representation.
And then people were upset because he said he wasn't going to censor what he said. And he's like, well, obviously he's
He's in a no-win situation.
well, and he said it's like you have to follow the law. I mean, if you think of Twitter as like town square, like, yeah, you can go into town square and say like, I don't like this or I don't agree with it, but you can't like go into town square and threaten to kill somebody
or take your pants off and pee in the middle.
See, there's
can't.
there's a new societal worth that is associated with social media, the online societal worth, which I grew up in an era, because I'm old, where before the interwebs, not the societal worth really is a good thing. It kind of sounds evil, but your place in society and how you interact and your feeling, your ego or whatever it was, your assertiveness in society, you had a way where you could you had a way where you could assess where you were in society. And you work toward a goal and you work toward this, or you want to maybe ask this young lady out or whatever, you know what the landscape is and where your position's in there. You have an opportunity to know that. Now you've got two of those. And unfortunately, in the reality component of that is kind of being diminished. And the online reality, the other component, is more weighty now. Like your online personality, worth, credibility, it's a different thing. And that's where someone 56 years old who is active in, in social media and doing things online, it's a real confusing thing. Because I remember I don't know if you folks happen to notice this, but Rocco Coz and I had our sons on for a father-son podcast.
Yeah, that was
both of
cute.
our kids are like the same age, and it was like they didn't know each other. So it was a very unique conversation, but very sad. Very sad to me. Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad I did it. I want to do it again. But I saw the timidity that both of these young kids had in regards to dating. And I consider my son a rather assertive kid, and he's, good-looking kid. Both of them are good-looking kids. They could go out and, haven't had any problem meeting people. But their inability to interact with girls they do want to go out with, they're afraid of being cyberbullied or made, the fear of being made fun of. Like, when I think of bully, I'm old school. I think of, like, this kid chasing me on my way home, kicking my ass. Or, like, even the lead up of threatening me in school, that was worse than actually getting beat up, right? It was the threat of it happening, right? That's not what I learned, that's not what cyberbullying is. It's this ostracizing done. Sometimes it's male, female, sometimes it's female, male, whatever. I'm sure it goes both ways. But for these two young men, it was obviously they were worried about being like put in the chat rooms, or like these girls going in the chat rooms and talking about them. And all Austin did was ask for someone to go out with them on a date or whatever. And that girl might have actually probably want to go out with them. But it was more fun, more luring. They were going to get more feedback if they went out to their girlfriends and made fun of him. And he was afraid of that. You see what I mean? The fear of that happening to him, which we all know that's meaningless because we're adults. We know it's meaningless, right?
It's not when you're that young, especially.
No.
Plus, nobody.
It was terrible.
Who likes being rejected?
Yeah.
Like, that is just.
And it's rejected forever. It's on the internet.
That's his
it's
argument.
Not just
even for
being,
really confident people, no one likes being rejected.
100%.
And then to have
100%.
someone take that rejection and then make it a public spectacle, I just think that's awful. And then cyberbullying's been linked to kids committing suicide. And it's fucked, man.
Yeah, I felt really, and I'm not at an alarmist stage. I mean, the kid's fine. I mean, but they both were expressing, Rocco and I, that, this dating thing as we know it. I mean, I'm very archaic. I mean, at mid-50s now, looking back at how we dated as opposed to what's going on now with those in their 20s, totally different. Totally different ballgame. I mean, it's, their communication is through Snapchat or whatever. It's not like this. This doesn't happen.
Tinder dates.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen. And I felt sad. Not really specifically sad for my kid, but just the whole process, because they both were telling us the same story. Different colleges, a year apart in age, different likes, different interests, but they just connected on that one thing where, like, Dad, you don't understand. It's not like, you just can't go ask this girl to go out and have a pizza. It doesn't work that way anymore. I'm like, Why doesn't it work this way, right? But
because I'll get put on blast on Twitter.
That's how he phrased it too. That if she turns me down, you know what I mean. But my argument, my first comeback was, well, you're a pit. There's hundreds of people in your class. Like, what do you give a shit? This girl that doesn't know you turns you down, right? I mean, but I can't be so callous to believe that just because that doesn't make sense to me, it made sense to him.
Yeah, plus, I mean,
right?
When you're a young person, getting up the gumption and the courage to ask somebody out and having the confidence in yourself to just,
100%.
Especially when it's not someone you know, like socially, where you don't have the opportunity to get to know them and then kind of try and, eventually lead up to suggesting that maybe you go out sometime. If you're hitting somebody cold, you just know them in a class, you think they're attractive, you really like them. Like, it's hard enough to face the possibility of being rejected without wondering if you're going to be made spectacle of on some Twitter thread.
And that fear, Jerry, is keeping them from actually taking that first step. And what a shame that is. I mean, and I'm sure it's happening their direction too.
Sure.
Well, and then I also see the other side of it too. Nobody should be ridiculed for that. I totally understand that. But they live in a different world where if you want to date somebody, the cold call thing is kind of just, there's, I'm trying to explain it in the way that, like,
they view it as predatory.
Yeah.
Like a female can view it as predatory.
If I am on Facebook or Instagram, or if I'm out somewhere, I don't want to be bothered with that. I didn't ask for that. So I feel like now that there is Tinder and all these, that's what they've grown to know as like the dating scene. So I also think that their age group, like if you are asking somebody out who didn't ask to be asked out, that's so weird to say, but like they're on, like I would get asked out and I'd be like, I'm not on a dating site. Like I'd feel like I was getting interviewed for a job I didn't
apply for.
Right. And I'd be like, just leave me alone. You know, or like, I think with my own social insecurities, and I was always going a lot of places by myself and stuff like that. And then you do have, you know, I'd love to believe that every young guy, not every young man is as nice as your son. So you say no and you're out in a situation. A lot of times they're not too happy about that. Nobody likes to be rejected, you know what I mean? And they can't take that. So I think in their world, it's definitely more of a cyber world, and it's more of a Tinder world and more of a like that type of thing. At least when you're on there and you're interacting, you know that it's a girl that is single. It is a girl that is looking to date. You know what I mean? It is a girl that like you're kind of already in that mode. Like, well, if she rejects me, like I'm.
To me though, and again, old guy talking, but it just seems like it takes some of the beauty of life away to me. Because that we were talking on the podcast, like I can think back some of the greatest moments I have in my memories was dating as a young person and the interactions, and you forget the sex, but just everything that led up to the courtship and all the getting to know someone and taking that chance of asking someone. If I had not taken the chance, would they? You know,
yeah, it's like a rite of passage in a lot of ways.
In a way, but again, I'm coming from it from a genuine standpoint. I'm not sliding in people's DMs and you know all that. So I will tell you, when I first sent you the idea of doing this podcast, my first fear was I'm aware that guys slide into people's DMs. I didn't, you know, I was aware. I didn't want you to think that, hey, here's some guy I don't know, you know, he's asking on a false pretense. So now every time I ask someone about I ask them, hey, have you ever done a podcast? When I'm meeting someone, hey, we've been connected on social media for a while. This is not what it looks like because I'm sure you're getting inundated by men. I have to preface everything I say to make them feel comfortable. Yeah. And I'm not always sure even then it lands right. You know, it's a weird maneuver now. Yeah, I'm coming to them to see if they're interested in what we're doing.
I've been in that spot too.
It's an awkward thing.
I've reached out to a woman, you know, about a lot of times it'd be about like working with them in a music thing or whatever. I mean, you always feel like they're gonna feel like
and once again,
I'm totally coming in with the Trojan horse.
I know. And
nobody should be even in that situation unless a guy's like completely. There's times where I'm like
so many guys just abuse the shit out of social media.
Yeah, there's times where I'm like, I should put this motherfucker on blast and like just put it out there.
Until a couple years ago, I had no idea how many men would just send unsolicited
until we did this show.
Dick pics.
Until we talked about. So my point to you is
that's
the funny part about that is
that how do you get into that mentality?
But there's a big swath.
I don't know.
I'm just gonna fire out like 300 pictures of my Johnson.
Does it ever work?
And just see.
Does it ever work?
Just see what happens.
It's not like fishing, you know? Fucking, that's not what we're here for.
No. But here's the other, I'll present the other side of this though, just since we've all kind of like, you know, looked at this from a few different angles.
Sure.
One of the things, and this is, you know, me recognizing that I'm coming at this perspective from a whole different, this whole kind of topic from the different perspective of someone who's been attached for a long time, has been married for a long time. And, you know, people do, to the general male's credit, I will say that because I'm married, I think that the amount of like dick pics and the amount of unsolicited requests for male attention have, you know, significantly dropped for me as a married woman.
You get a few from Jerry every once in a while, but that's about it.
I mean, I look forward to those.
I would hope so.
That's what keeps it spicy.
I would hope so.
You gotta keep her on her toes.
Yeah, that's like he has like fake profiles that he sends me. Just to keep things spicy.
That's fantastic.
It's a picture like a Mideastern guy.
Then I open it and it's you.
Show Bob's bitch lasagna.
By the way, I'm downstairs. Oh my god. But anyway, where I was going with that.
Photoshop some picture of an Eastern guy you don't know, like right on the couch, you know what I mean?
Oh my god. I'd be like, what the fuck?
With like a Bud Light open, just
oh no.
Ready
this
when you are.
for you.
Oh my god.
Ready when you are.
No, kill me now.
I don't want to just hit the Mideastern guys. I know that's a stereotype.
Oh,
That's not fair.
There's a lot of spam. There's a lot of spam coming from that region of the world right now.
Plenty of well-behaved Middle Eastern gentlemen out there.
Yeah, and there's plenty of white dudes that are just quite as bold. But what I was going to say is that one of the things that I feel like that, and I will recognize, like I said, my point of privilege, we'll say, coming at this topic in the sense that I don't get this unsolicited, attention quite as often as single women. I am also of the opinion that a lot of women, in present company not included, because I've seen Cass, definitely set very appropriate boundaries for herself. But I feel like for some women, it's difficult to set boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so then...
Why is that?
I don't know.
They're coming from a scared point of view, just like you're saying your son and Rocco's son are. It's like sometimes saying no is scarier than...
Mm-hmm. Being worried about how they're going to be viewed socially, being worried about how it's going to be...
You're not getting the aggressive response back sometimes?
Yeah.
From the male?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also being ridiculed by their group. I mean, think about how different the world was even 10 years ago. We were demonizing celebrities for not wearing underwear when it was the photographers taking the pictures.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just I mean, don't get me wrong, I've gotten a lot of bad, because ego's a big thing, like we said. I mean, these guys go into it thinking like, well, if I think ththey're taught a lot of terrible manners. You should be mean to girls and then they'll like you. Or
I know you're right. I understand you're right, but that is just so fucking weird to me. Like,
I guess the point that I'm trying to make by saying this is I feel like we could, kind of like, I don't want to say we can't go backwards, like we can't return to a pre-internet time in dating, but I will say that, like, in the same way that we're holding men to this standard of like, they need to know, if a woman is single, if she's actually actively dating, like all these things, I think we should be holding women to an equal standard to just clearly communicate what their desires are and whether or not they find something appropriate or not appropriate.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times men go in not clear. They'll find an in and they'll say, and what I was going to say was different about me and your interaction. This goes back to the dark ages of chat rooms. So back in the day, and me and my brother talk about this all the time because we say this is definitely a lost mannerism in social media today, but this used to be in chat room etiquette and when social media first came about, because when Facebook first came about, it was only for college kids. So my brother had it way before I had it.
Right.
I didn't go to college.
Yeah.
So, but you always interacted with somebody in public before you slid into their DMs.
Right.
And most of the time you asked in public, do you want to speak privately?
In private messages. Yeah.
So a lot of times if there is a guy, and I try to give as much grace to them as I can, because I know it is hard to ask people out.
I don't
and
know
stuff
why,
like
but
that.
I thought you were going to say is give as much of a fuck you vibe.
Well, that too.
Just so we lay down the law. Right
that's what she really means.
Yeah. No, that's what I do.
That's my move. That's why I don't get approached too often.
Right.
No bitch lasagna for you.
The bitch lasagna is closed.
But, I try to be as polite and friendly as I can, but a lot of times that opens up. And then as a woman, you get the well, why'd you entertain them anyway? Why'd you say hi to them anyway? They're not trying to be your friend. They're a dude. And I'm like, because then you get that you're a stuck up. They were just trying. I've had guys that have slid into my DMs, never talked to them on social media before, and they've said, hey, I see you're a part of this group, or whatever, something like that, and I either don't answer them back because I'm like, I've never talked to you before, I don't know, don't know you, and then you get the messages of oh, you think you're too good for me, that's why you're not answering me back or something. Or
so that's the immaturity thing. Case in point, if I had asked you, so when I reached out to you, had you not responded back to me, I probably might have sent a second one and said, hey, I don't know if you saw this. Here's what I'm trying to do. Are you interested? If I hadn't got a response on a second time, I wouldn't I mean, I'm done. I'm not gonna. Why would I? I'm not angry at you. I'm assuming that either you don't check your messages, you're not interested, or maybe you've had a bad experience communicating with strangers online. So I'm going to back away. Like that seems to be the natural thing to do.
I think a lot of guys
yeah,
look at social media as a way to just send messages out in mass. Like that's gonna, you know what I mean?
that's
I think they have an unrealistic expectation.
I get it, but I don't get it. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to understand
found out
that.
how much of a problem it really is, I was just like, man, you guys.
I found that on this show.
You guys need to learn how to fucking behave.
You guys taught me that on this show.
I'll tell you what. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say really quickly. I've always said that lonely people are some of the meanest people in the world. Because as we were speaking about like ego, like they really need something from you, whether it's a friendship or an interaction or
just someone to take a shot at.
Constant attention. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if they really aren't okay with being by themselves, or they don't have people in their life that are actually a meaningful relationship, and they're looking for that, I mean they're hurt. It's hurtful to them. So hurt people, and they're gonna come back at you with.
I like that. Hurt people.
Yeah.
But see, so go back to before. Again, it's hard for me to say that to you. It's arrogant for me to say that. But I was going to say, go back to before the internet times, right? The before times, where if you were lonely and you were struggling socially in society, you had to figure it out, or you weren't going to figure it out. But to really get to engage, to have a successful job, to make things work, to try to mingle, you had to figure that out. There was a world you were maneuvering in. This is a whole nother world right now, which oftentimes, like Jerry said on the show many times ago, your perceived consequences in the virtual world are very minimal. Right? Because usually, I mean, you've been saying that for about, and it's true. It's true. Well, now in this virtual world, that lonely person has a very, they now have brass balls because they can talk to people in their little virtual way that they would never have the courage to do in a real world.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially with the opposite sex. So now they're maneuvering in a different way, and I'm not entirely sure this virtual world is better for humanity in the way we interact. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's on a broad view. I'm thinking that the real communication and how we had to, and I hate to use this phrase, but I want to say kind of know our place. Not that there's a pecking order and we should be held down. I'm saying, but we know where we are right now in society and how the world is and how we need to maneuver correctly and hopefully kindly. But now you take a lonely person out of that world and stick them in the virtual world. Now they're maneuvering a different way, which is going to affect a lot of other people and probably be rude to a lot of other people. And I think that's what's happening right now.
And you're looking at it also, like when you were saying your logic took you to, like, if somebody doesn't answer me, then I'll either assume like they're, they don't check their messages, they had a bad interaction.
Or not interested.
Or not interested. And that's a very human approach to it. Like, I see this person as a human.
100%.
They could have 100 things going on the other side of this. And I'm just gonna leave my ego out of this and not be like, oh, that was rude, they didn't message me back.
Well, and what's interesting is that, like, what you're talking about is like the way that people just learn to interact socially, and it's not even just in like a male female or male or female female dating situation. I've had more women slide into my DMs to try to sell me things,
something,
which, like, I just feel like, I feel like the one thing that it has done, and this is part of where, like, you've talked about entrepreneurship, and this isn't like a dig, but I just don't think everyone is really actually meant for entrepreneurship. I feel like the internet has created this culture where everyone thinks that they should be, because they view that as like a higher form of society. And so then you have like people that maybe wouldn't have been inclined towards doing some kind of direct sales or whatever, just sort of falling into it because they have this like easy in with, like, maybe they found a product line that a friend of theirs was selling. They figured they could do it too or whatever. Then you've got kind of like, then you're like into these like forced, like weird sort of like interactions with people where it's like, I'm like,
unfortunately,
would you have walked up to my door? Like, would you have like, you know what I mean? Like, would you?
It's a new paradigm now.
Well, but that's just it is like when, Mary Kay was like first like up and coming, like those women had to be the kind of women that were like, you know, outgoing enough and like, you
Yep.
know, like
Yep.
knowledgeable enough about that product line,
Yep.
use the products, all that kind of stuff, that they were confident enough to like literally walk up to your front door and be like, hey, I've got this thing I want to sell you. Now
So-
you've got like,
Right.
Well,
Just
and
this
you're
whole-
seeing so much behind the curtain too. This multi-level marketing thing. Not only are there, you know, like you said, there's so many women that like slide into your DMs to sell you something, and you can tell, like, if you have somebody who multiple people who work for that same company, they're all saying the same things to you. It's almost like they've been
It's a
given a
script.
script.
yeah.
And then you're seeing so far behind the curtain. They're like, I went on vacation with my first check from, I'm not going to like name a brand name, but you know what I mean? Like, you're seeing, they're trying to recruit people underneath of them to sell to. So there's talking about, oh, I made so much money off and the basic, I mean, of course, there's always numbers and things to sales, but people don't buy what you sell. They buy why you sell
100%.
it. Yeah. So, I mean, if
100%.
you're like phoning it in and everything seems the same and it seems
Well, it's
very,
really a pyramid scheme when you do it online.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it has a pyramid scheme basis when you're doing it like traditionally, but online, it's pretty obvious it's a pyramid scheme. And that's
Right.
how it does multi-level marketing. But, you know, it took like a really, I used to call them rockheads, like Avon, Amway, the traditional multi-level marketing comes. When you found someone that really became great at that, you knew they were willing to burn it all down. They were willing to burn every relationship, to take like 300 relationships, knowing they're going to retain 5 of them. Those 5 of them are going to build their business and fuck my social life. I'll make new friends, right?
Oh my God.
But now everybody's willing to do that. In theory, they want to try to do that online, but they don't understand the gravity of how hard that was in real life.
right.
You see what I mean? Those Avon ladies that used to, or Mary Kay ladies used to drive the pink cars, you know, back in the 90s. They would drive pink cars. Well, they think about all the relationships they have burnt to the fucking ground to
wow.
get to that point where they became that successful.
Looking out the
Muslim.
window like, oh shit, here she comes. Turn the lights out.
But it's so easy, like you said, consequences, right? There's just very little consequences. I'll send out 30 messages. That's no sweat off my back. It didn't even cost me anything. I just type some stuff in, put 30 people's names in. If I get one that responds, great. They're not thinking about the human consequence on the other side, which might ruin any potential relationship or even friendship or acquaintance.
You're
with
being
those people.
avoided because you're always trying to,
Right.
you're very
right.
ingenuine and you're always trying to sell me shit.
And that's and as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that's quote unquote entrepreneurship. That's just nonsense. You know. in my
yeah,
opinion.
I agree, but they're getting very
They're
brainwashed.
persistent.
Well, I feel like, you know,
Who is the skincare? The more like I want to name a name, not name the individuals, but name the brand. There's a skincare like 5 or 7 years ago that really hit big, and I was getting it because there's like a men's line too.
yeah, and
And
they had
what is the
great
name?
products. It was
Bon
just,
R or whatever. Oh Christ, I'm sure the
Yeah.
products are good, but it was just like everybody was selling it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, and I always would say, hey, well, wait a second. So I got a especially when they know each other, it's great. Hey, Julie, you know, is this the same stuff that Gwen's selling over here, or is it the same stuff that Bill is selling that Contact Mission? Because it all looks the same to me. Like, do I buy off of you or those two? I don't want to wreck my friendship. I put them right in the fucking spot and see what they say.
There you go.
Who would you prefer me buy off of you, or should I buy off of them?
I'm not going to buy this shit anyway. I might as well have some fun.
Pretty much. But there's that one man that is just, and I'm sure people have made money. I just don't like to be.
and I've met people that really truly believe in the products, but then you just run into so many people that are like, it's definitely ingenuine. They just jumped on because they're like, I can do this in my free time, and you know what I mean. I don't know.
I'll tell you what. I'll put myself out there. I have done multiple product lines like that, and like honestly, like it's funny because every time I wound up doing a different one, it was like through different circumstances. Like I don't even remember. We wound up with the Market America account because that guy we met
We did a
through your
show in New
band.
York,
Yeah, and this guy that we met, like he was like making good money at it too.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so like we like, you know, and it was at like a really tumultuous time in our lives. Like we had a lot of upheaval and we were like, fuck it. Like we'll do Market America. Why not? Like, and then when you realize kind of like what you have to do, like you were saying to like really become successful.
Kind of have to set your whole life up around it.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's interesting that the people that were really successful at it, like a lot of times like really big families would be successful at it because they would just kind of like pyramid down their whole family. And then like, it's a very big commitment, and their product line, like they had like a whole separate like nutritional like products, like they were all supplements of that. And I was like pretty new into work, or maybe not new, but I had been working for chiropractors for maybe a couple years, had sold a couple different lines, and they had comparable products, and I like started using their products, and I was like, hey, these are just as good as the ones I was selling for this guy, and I can make my own money on them. And then I got certified and all that. And then when I stopped doing that, I ended up like working with a different chiropractor. They were working with a couple different lines, like and I know that they basically just used me to set up an additional account for their multi-level marketing thing that they were already involved in. And
they're just hoping one sticks.
I was
set up 10,
like,
hope
fuck
one
it.
sticks.
Like, I don't care. Like, I'm like, because like honestly, some of the products are decent. Like those doTERRA essential oils, I will live and die by those. I'm telling you
those are good products.
They are set up in that.
I feel like you had some success selling those too.
I did.
Yeah.
I
Because people love those.
Because that is like the one product line that I will say I have never found another essential oil brand comparable.
If you approach it from a passive standpoint, I think you can be successful and not burn all your relationships.
That's not fucking sales, Eric.
Well, it's not. And I think of Herbalife. Before the.
If I'm interviewing you for this,
Herbalife. Mark Hughes started that company. He's no longer with us, but he was something. I mean, you read his story. But it basically, it was a friends and family kind of thing. But they were rock solid companies. Their products were legitimate, but the method in which they sold their product required on friends selling to friends and family. But that's no difference. Oftentimes, that's no different to a young person getting their not a real estate per se, but let's say life insurance. They go get a life insurance. You now are a young guy, gal. You're 25 years old. You get your life insurance license. Now you're sitting at New York Life, and you're sitting there, and they're looking at you like, okay, we'll go out and sell some life insurance. Well, how do you do that? You go out and you start hitting on your friends and family, buy some life insurance off me. It takes the right kind of person.
Yeah, I was about to say,
do that.
If I'm interviewing you for a sales position, you're like, yeah, I'm kind of passive. No, skip you.
Well,
you got to be a.
In real life, 100%. But on the web, you're creating all these people who are just kind of dipping their toes in things. And that's why.
That's what I was saying.
That's
and it's interesting because, like, I will say that to your point with the doTERRA oils, the reason I had success with that was because I would use it mainly for people, because I had a pretty big network through doing massage therapy before I became a diet tech. And then even when I transitioned into that, it's all wellness. And I could genuinely say, I'm like, yeah, these are like the better essential oils than you're ever going to find in the store.
There's validity in that.
And
what
like products for the products that you actually use and use with your clients and have seen success. If I come to you, it wouldn't matter at this point, but if I had hair and I said, hey, what's the best, for a guy, what's the best hair, if I had to wash my hair, I remember those days. God, it was great. It was so fucking great. I had nice full head hair. I mean, I loved hair.
I loved hair.
I know, it's a bummer. But I used products. I would get sold by my hairstylist. She would sell me, and the stuff was it was expensive, but it was always really good. So I get the stuff's good. It's just the manner in which you have to market it.
Well, and what I would do honestly with that was I would just use it so that I could sell them at my cost.
Sure.
And all it really did for me was gave me free products, but I never had to really buy anything either.
Oh, I totally get it.
And by then I was kind of like out of the idea of really wanting to be like in sales exactly. You know what I mean? I wasn't like interested in retail sales as much anymore of like being like an entrepreneur with regards to like product sales. Right. But I was like, these are good. And like, truthfully, like the one thing about, I will say like, it's been probably almost 10 years since I was even in that, like maybe like 7 or 8 or 9, but I still have like oils that I had bought way back then, and they're still good. You know what I mean? Like
quality on this stuff is generally really good.
So if you know someone that's selling doTERRA, freaking buy that stuff off of them, because I'm telling you, I have no vested interest anymore. I don't have an account, but I will tell you, and like now it's kind of messed up now because all those products, whether they're Market America products or, because I will say like the Market America like nutritional line, again, they were good. You can buy all of it on Amazon now.
Yeah,
Amazon's ruined it all.
I will say it kind of has.
I'll never forget. We'd go up. We went to like a conference, a big conference they had. I think it was in is it Maryland? I think it was up in Maryland
Or Virginia, one of the two.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
and it was like national conference, people from all over the country. It was kind of cool, you know what I mean, just to see how big the network was and how many people were involved. But I remember they'd announced these different, like there was different regions and place like that, you know. And I don't know what it was about Flushing, New York. There were all these Asian women, and like they'd announced Flushing, New York, and all these Asian women would go fucking nuts. Like just it was like a fucking football game, you know what I mean? And I remember hearing about like how they were so successful. They just
that community supports each other.
Well, there you go. And literally, I remember someone telling me, they're like, "No, you don't understand these women. They'll just like befriend a woman and come into their house and just start going through their shit and start going through it literally just like, you don't use this product anymore. You don't use this product anymore. You don't use this anymore. This is what you're going to use to clean your bathroom." And literally just like, here's your entire house of cleaning products, of nutritional products.
God.
Here's everything you need from now on.
That makes my stomach hurt. If somebody did that in my house, I'd be like, oh my God.
So can we talk a little bit about competition? Now, y'all know my stance on competition. I don't want any parts of it, and I'm a big sports fan. You know, love baseball. My God, and I get it within the confines of. I even understand it in the confines of a company. If you're in a sales group, I understand there's probably motivation. I manage the unmanageable, which is salespeople, right?
Yeah.
But I just the moment I shunned that from my life and wasn't in a competitive mode anymore, my life got better. So I'm sitting here now as a middle-aged guy that has no competition in my life anywhere, but I feel like social media is pushing every human that interacts with this platform potentially into competitive situations, and not even in a lane, basically being competitive with everyone you see. Because I think most people, when they sum up someone on social media, your mind kind of goes right to those likes. Like, where's their value in the scheme? Are they a player? Are they a real person? Are they, you know, we kind of look to the numeral component of the
metrics of it.
Yeah, we do. Whether even if we're not even, me included, not that sophisticated to understand how all that works, we do use those likes as currency. And I think that's fucking things up. Not in the virtual world, and it's also bleeding over into the real world now.
Yeah,
you know?
there's room for everybody. So it's like when you're in competition.
Say that again, Soul Sisters.
There's room for everybody, and I can I've said before, I can only be the best Cassidy. I can't be the best Eric. I can't be the best Julia. I can't be the best Jer.
You might be able to be a better Jerry than me.
I doubt that.
I don't.
We'll test it.
He said it.
I think people would like her better. You might be able to. I think you could fill in at certain events, maybe family functions. I think my family, they might like you better.
Are you going to pay her?
Your mom does like me. Me and your mom get along very well.
There'd probably be like family dinner.
Free food for sure.
What if they like her better?
That would be great if I just showed up with a very obvious printed out Jerry face. Mask on.
I'd finally show up one time and everybody would be like,
oh man, the old Jer's back.
All right, I guess we can. Yeah.
This show goes weird, doesn't it?
We'll put you somewhere near the back, I guess. We had a place of honor out here and we thought it was Cassidy filling in.
Continue.
Oh my God. But what I was saying, what I meant was, I feel like it squelches individual out. Squelch a real world.
Yeah.
Okay. It squelches individualism.
Oh.
Because you're, like I said, if you're in competition, like even in there was always a lot of competition in the hairdresser world, and when I started, over 20 years ago, it was very much they eat their young kind of business. Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
Cutthroat.
Very cutthroat. Nobody really wanted the new girl to do better, obviously.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that on an episode prior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I feel like that's really shaped my...
Picturing guys like dulling each other's scissors.
Yeah.
Swapping the chemicals out and stuff like that.
Well, it's very much, there's a lot of good hairdressers out there. So if somebody comes to you, they have to like you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You can...
100%.
So I think you're on stage a lot with a lot of that stuff. And of course you don't want the newer, younger person coming in and you know, especially since it is kind of like a trend-based occupation, you know what I mean? So younger equals newer, fresher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, being new, it was
fashion, right?
Yeah. It was tough being 18, 19 and trying to make a career and trying to like survive on that.
I thought you started when you were 12.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Doing the dog's hair.
Yeah, I mean, you only turned 31, right? So you started when you were 11, right?
So it has shaped who I've become in the company, because I never want... I think I could have been a better hairdresser earlier on had I not had a lot of hoops to jump over and things like that. And I'm not even saying I've worked at the same place. It's not even really the place I worked. It's more just
the industry as a whole.
Yeah. And now I think it's gotten a lot better with, like I said, it really has a lot to do with individualism. There's tons of hairdressers out there, and it's definitely, and you probably know this as a realtor and just in other aspects, some people are just not for you and some people are perfect for you.
100%.
And so I think you have to take it as that. It's not like put your ego into it, and if they don't like me, you know what I mean? Right. But it's definitely shaped, how I train the younger girls, and I really want the other girls to succeed. And the younger girls, I think, have been more successful and been better people, better hairdressers. They've grown just because we create this culture where they are very supportive of each other. When I started, it was like, you guys compete with each other. You guys might be the same age, but whoever makes it to the top first is going to get rewarded. Where it's kind of like now, if you make it to the top, good for you. Everybody's clapping for you. But everybody, it's...
Like, what is the top, though? Like, I understand. I mean, we're talking conceptually, I get it. But, like, if you were to say you make it to the top, what would be a qualifier that I would understand?
Probably clientele, how much clientele you have. Just because if you're retaining a clientele, that means you're doing a good job and people like you. They trust you as their hairdresser. Okay. You know what I mean? So I think most of the time there's people that are a little slower with that type of momentum, and that's okay. Now that's kind of okay. We know everybody has their strengths, their weaknesses, and there's so many different people out there. There's not one type of hairdresser because there's not one type of client. So I think it's better to look at it that way than like push somebody to be to go into a different bracket of how many clients you have right away. So like I said, it's really shaped. Like, I look at the younger girls as they could, I think sometimes when you're trying to my boss's mom and dad would always say, and I swear I'm going to make a book of things they've told me as I've grown up, because it's all like been...
Make it a pop-up book.
Yeah. It's all been... And they always said, you can't beat youth, which is true. You can't be, like, you can be the best at this age, but I'm not going to go back to being 20. But I also don't want to go back to being 20.
Sure.
And now that I have a lot of younger girls, like a lot of younger hairdressers that are trying to like have some guidance in this business, like I know I can offer that to them and support, where I feel like if you didn't have that before, a lot of times it squelches squelches what they can become. So I think there's so much room for growth in things. Like I said, there's room for everybody. So the competition thing, if you're not competing with yourself and you're competing with everybody that you just can't be, no matter how hard you try, then it's actually taking away from your growth and experience.
But I think that's a mature. So your philosophy is a mature attitude that even the mature don't actually even get sometimes. I mean,
I really approve of your pronunciation of mature.
I know. I was about to say, imagine Cassidy being mature.
Well, I used to call it. I think the reason I started saying mature is because that's how you would always say it.
How who?
I used to say mature, and then you said mature a couple times on
Me?
this show. Yeah, and I kept saying, and I started
didn't
calling.
say- no.
I don't think she's ever
Wasn't
said
you?
No.
Somebody on this show, I think,
I'm
has
like,
said
no.
mature.
That was.
I don't
like
know
'em
what's
both.
right. I don't know if it's mature or mature. I don't know.
I like them both.
I guarantee that I say
Squelch.
it like a Yinzer.
Squelch reminds me of a CB radio in the 70s.
Mature.
Squelch, mature. We're getting into ASMR here. We're like mature. Mature.
I've learned so much on this series, I swear.
know.
I know what all these acronyms now mean.
I feel
It's
like you're
scary.
competing with us for your.
I guess, man.
Mature.
Well, but I mean,
Pronunciation.
but you know what? I was
You
almost.
think you're better than us? That's what this shit's really about. You don't have the note cards to throw.
I know. Don't throw the magazine. There's a nice article in here.
I
don't have much to contribute today, so I just got these silly ass comments.
So wait, side note, what I want to know is why is there a hammer on, like, this is making me a little nervous.
You don't remember the ball? We've talked about the, what is it? The ball peen point.
Ball peen.
Ball peen.
Yeah,
Peen.
so this,
That's another great word.
My-
Is that in case somebody
Peen.
gets out of line?
So my brother was like a larger than life character, muscular guy, passed away in the mid '90s, had drugs and all that stuff. But we know all that. But like his thing was, he used to say ball peens can solve anything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he says, oh yeah, they can ball peens. I keep a couple in my car, in my trunk, in my work box. Ball peens solve everything.
It's a life
That was
philosophy.
his.
It's like the
that was
duct
his
tape
thing. Yeah.
philosophy.
So I always had a ball peen on my desk at PageNet, at Boogie Street, no matter where I was. I always had a ball peen.
It's a
I don't
power
know.
move.
Because we asked you,
I don't know.
about it at you had it at the old studio,
Yeah.
and he said, "Why do you have that
Yeah.
ball
peen.
I always
Peen.
feel like, is that really the right way to say it? Like I'm going to
Didn't
make
we
a
look up
Freudian
what it
slip.
actually means? Like, what's the purpose of a ball peen? Is
Not
it
sure.
for sheet metal or some shit?
Apparently, it has multiple purposes. It can solve just about anything.
Seriously.
That's what Brian used to say. Ball peen solve anything.
You take two funny words and you put them together. Ball
And then you've solved a lot.
peen. And you're-
Somebody had to do that's a practical joke originally,
A
right?
squelch mature hammer.
I expected nothing less.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, competition.
I don't have a lot of meaningful commentary, a lot of insight this episode, so
Yes, you brought up a whole topic.
Yeah.
It was super
Yeah.
meaningful.
I'm just
Right.
yelling out
Our-
random
our
peanut
initial-
gallery comments.
Our initial topic was a whole soliloquy on what you presented on.
Soliloquy. Whoa.
Yeah.
That was good.
I know. You missed the interim. I used constitutionality correctly.
That was a
With
fantastic.
regards to, and I'll throw it out there too,
And it
because
just flowed.
we were
off her
talking
tongue.
about
I know.
For all you Scrabble lovers out there.
so we were talking about Amanda Baker's cupcakes,
Mhm.
and I was
Yeah.
talking about the Fruity Pebbles, and I was saying how
They
fruity
were impressively good.
they were, but Fruity Pebbles as a cereal doesn't have a lot of constitutionality, meaning that like the moment it's like you remember when you would have it.
Yeah.
And you would pour the milk in it, and it was like in 2 seconds, it was
was
soggy.
soggy.
Yeah,
And it was so
Yeah.
good
You
before
had to
it
eat them
turned
things.
soggy.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. You just got to eat it really.
You really had to eat
Yeah.
it fast.
And I'm so
Sure.
jealous you guys have had Amanda's cupcakes and I haven't.
They are-
It's been such like
several.
They're really good.
it's been such eye porn on the internet because
Oh,
I get
God.
to see how
So,
good they look.
Amanda, like the next time the squad show reconvenes, which should be about
We're
between
placing
6
a
to 8
special
weeks
order.
She
from
absolutely
now,
would.
we'll
Yeah.
place an order.
She loves to bake.
And we'll stick
She
them
would.
right up here.
I know.
We'll
I know.
stare at them for the first
Her-
Plug the
segments.
show.
Yeah.
Her
Oh,
shit's
for
so
a
pretty
second.
too.
Business.
Plug her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which I'm doing
absolutely.
right now, but we'll do it again while we're
Absolutely.
actually eating them.
Absolutely.
Just sit here
I
and get it all
know.
over our
Yeah.
faces.
Oh, it was messy as shit. We were eating them in bed. Like trying to like laying there with like a plate underneath of you with like Fruity Pebbles just kind of like showering all around.
Plus
And
they-
I'm like picking them off of the bed and
Dude,
putting them
each one of them had like a Rice Krispie square shoved into the top of it.
but made with
Yeah.
Fruity
These
Pebbles.
look like they belong at the royal wedding. These are for real cupcakes. She
They were
just
Her shit's so
She
pretty
does not kid
to
around.
see it on. I know it all looks so
almost too
good.
nice to eat.
it's total food porn.
Yeah, it was delightful.
Food.
She would absolutely make a badge.
Yeah. Well, I
We
mean,
could pick
we'd
'em
probably have to buy them, but you
I
know,
will definitely buy
that's
'em.
whatever.
No problem.
I'll do that.
Absolutely.
And we'll display
Yeah.
them here. We have to create a name for this. This is going to be
Our butcher's block.
Food
Yeah.
display.
You can tell that like we are all missing our Oreos because now we're like
Yeah, we're looking for that mid-show sugar kick, and we don't have it.
I know.
I am missing those Oreos.
Me too. I am too. Like,
I am so clean this show.
We've gone through a lot of like different treats. You brought those misfortune cookies the one time.
I was thinking of those on the way here.
They were weird.
On the way here.
I know.
We keep checking our teeth.
The pictures that we took at the end, and we're like, where all of us had like.
We had to keep checking our teeth.
It was so funny you said that, because on the way here I'm driving, and for some reason those popped in my head. Like, remember when we brought those misfortune cookies and we were eating those, and like
the fortunes were hysterical.
They were, yeah, totally.
Man, I really want some Oreos now.
I know, I'm sorry.
There's a convenience mart. We can pause it. There's a convenience mart down the street.
No, we just got to power through.
So we could compete for these Oreos, Joe.
Oh shit!
We could play checkers
with the hammer.
You don't think?
Oh my gosh!
You don't think it's societally we're all competing with each other?
I was just going to say
indirectly.
In consideration of the current topic, I think that like we're even competing with like like whose dinner posts got the most likes. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think like you're right in the sense that like every aspect of our lives now is kind of like up for display, because that's basically like what Instagram is.
Right.
We're always looking for that bar to be set. Like, what should I be hitting right now at this moment? Or where should I be in my life? Or where should I, So I think there's that aspect. But, like, I mean, you got to have balance. You have to realize sometimes you're just not, like I said, there's tortoise and hare sometimes. I mean, sometimes you're a little slower at hitting somewhere where you need to be. I think you don't always need to hit and check certain boxes either.
Well, and I'll say, too, like, is one of the things that I've considered recently getting back into promoting is like I've realized like like I had to get back into the idea of wanting to put myself out there on social media just in the day-to-day stuff.
Let's talk about that.
I will. But just real quick.
Okay.
One of the things I realized is like, we went out and we saw Doug Carnahan at the Porch. We were there Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like trying to do a live video because that's, what I used to do when I would promote all the time. I was always like taking videos when I was at shows and everything. And the internet wasn't connecting right. And we were just having such a nice time. Then that we were outside. It was the perfect weather. Like he sounded great. We had a nice meal. And, for like just like a few minutes, I was kind of trying to make this work. And I was like, you know what? I don't care that it's not working. I'm not even going to post about it. Because like it like took away from the experience that I was having. And that's one of the things I've been having a lot of difficulty with the idea of getting back into promotions is that like I've just been enjoying, I haven't been enjoying every moment of my life in the past few months. But, the moments that I've really enjoyed have been really special and and private. And I just honestly like one of the things that I've changed about my approach to social media is really not wanting to post every meal that I'm eating, every interaction that I'm having, every party that I go to, every like lunch that I have with someone, every like coffee date, all those little things that it was like such a big part of my life because I put so much of myself out there for so long. And then now having kind of like taken a little bit of a hiatus from that. And like I do, I've been doing, different things that are very specific for social media, but like the private moments of my life, I've been enjoying having some privacy. And but I feel like that is such a big part of what people really want with social media is they want that glimpse into like your personal life,
We expect it now, don't you think?
Yeah. And if you have a strong social media presence, a lot of times it really is more about just like, I hate to say it, but it is sometimes like the mundane day-to-day moments that people post, and the people that are really good at encapsulating that in a way that is like just like appealing and visually
hopefully funny. Like I'm looking for a humorous thing.
Visually pleasing, just like all that kind of stuff that they just sort of has all that, but it's relatable because it's like this super mundane thing that everybody does. And that's what I think really hits with people is like these things that they see. They're just like these like little moments that people are having.
Oh yeah.
And when you get to like almost like share that, it's like you get that glimpse into someone's life. And I don't know, I've been having kind of like a little bit of a personal like almost like crisis of conscience of like how I want to continue utilizing social media because I've really enjoyed like going out to shows and not feeling like I needed to do that. You know what I mean?
Not
like
being watched and not
in the times that I have done it. Like because I we went to Deutschtown, we went to Millville Music, we went and did a couple. It's like it makes me feel like I'm like on. You know what I mean? Like whereas instead of just like being there and like really getting to just experience the moment, like I don't know, like I have to kind of separate that, and I've been kind of trying to figure out what a good balance with that's going to be.
Yes, I went on vacation for the first time in like 7 years.
I saw that on Instagram.
Natalie and I went away, and yeah, right.
Where'd you go? What's on your shirt? To the crick that's deep.
The crick, very deep.
Frickin' Yinzer.
Very, very deep. But the inclination I had that everything that I saw, and I saw a lot of funny shit down there. Everything was funny to me. Like I go to a restaurant, I can tell you off camera, I'll tell you some stories. But everywhere I was turning around, there was a funny moment, and I felt inclined, like, oh, this is, because conceptually I think of things like, that's pretty funny. I should, I stop myself and say, look, you asshole, you put an obligatory post out that letting folks know you're out of town, and maybe that might let people know you're not going to get back to them right away, or you're not going to get back right away. And we are having a good time. The photos were accurate, but then that's good. And then I had to stop and say, it's okay if a day or 2 or 3 goes by where there's no post. It's okay, right? I mean, this is your life. You don't have a job. Social media is not a job requirement. No one's paying you, Eric, to be their social media guru. You're doing it for yourself and for your projects and for your practice. So you're not. It isn't like you're being required to have that part of your life on Vision. And it was kind of nice to step back for a couple of days because it reminded me of the before times, before social media. I mean, when I dug a band, I dug a band. I'm listening to it in the car radio. I was enjoying that moment. And now it's like you listen to music. It's like, I'm guilty. I want to share this experience. This fucking album is so fucking good, right? I mean, and maybe that's good, and maybe that's bad. I don't know. But I remember when things were simpler, and I would just go through these little moments in life, and the moments were good enough. The moments were good enough. They didn't need to be qualified as being a certain level of good by having the either the approval or the engagement with others after the fact. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the moment was good enough.
Yeah.
I think too, and I'm sure when Julia, when you were talking about this, and it's a lot of what it is too, is that promotion, for me, I don't really have a dog in the race as far as like, I just love music and live music, and I loved the local music scene. So a lot of the time, me taking some footage and posting it, it was more about, I know that I discover a lot of things on social media, like, oh, that band looks awesome, I'm going to go see them the next time they're around or whatever. And so a lot of it can be about that, but I think there just has to be balance in everybody's life where, you, like you said, you can post a picture, we're having fun, this is great, it'll come up on your memories someday and you'll be like, oh, remember that? That was great. But I think as far as like posting every little thing, because if it's not posted, it didn't happen.
We need to get away from that.
Or it isn't valid or whatever. But if you're really enjoying something, and I think, like there's restaurants that I go to that I'm like, I want this restaurant to stay open, so I might post how good this food
100%.
looks or something.
100%.
So if you come at it at a genuine, but I totally see, like, sometimes you just want to enjoy the moment and you don't want to have to make a picture work. Or I don't know how many times I've gone to see a band or a local band and I've tried to get like a really just that perfect, like right at that moment in their song where it would be a great like 15 seconds to post. And at the same time, it just keeps getting messed up. Somebody's walking in front of my camera or something happens on stage.
And then you're totally distracted from the whole song.
Yeah. And then by the time I get that footage, it's like, well, I just like missed everything. So sometimes I think it's like how seriously you take it or how seriously you have to take it. If you're a promoter, if you're a promoter and you're having to, that's one thing. But you have to have balance and enjoy your moments too.
Right.
It's
and
one
I don't want
thing
to
to
give
be
off
social.
the impression that like I don't like enjoy that aspect of it, because obviously part of how I gravitated toward doing promotions in the first place.
For sure.
Was part of like the same kind of things that you're talking about. Is like, oh, this band's really good, I want people to see it. But then like,
and there's value in that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I feel like, especially in the last few months, like things have just been, I had like a little break from social media. And then when I kind of got back into it, I was like, okay, I'm going to approach this from a little bit of a different standpoint. I'm going to be a little bit less, maybe like I'm going to be a little bit more like discretionary about how I choose what I'm posting or whatever. Like I'm going to keep some things to myself. But then like I realize I'm like, there is that balance of like, wanting to share things that like I think that other people would, like you said, would enjoy discovering. And doesn't have to feel like an invasion of privacy necessarily. And then like learning when to distinguish like what moments are for you and what moments like are, good to share. It takes like a little bit of thought and balance sometimes, I feel like.
And it's really easy to get off balance in life. I mean, I think especially when you're really enjoying something or you're really enjoying interaction on social media.
Yep.
And then it becomes, almost like that neuropath that you cut in your brain that you're like, now I have to do this all the time because it's so awesome. And really it's more just about like what really brings value to your time there.
What always cracks me up is people filming fireworks displays. Like that's just one of those things that just doesn't really
translate.
Yeah.
Or their Thanksgiving dinner.
It's one thing if you take a couple photos and like, hey, we went to see the fireworks. Oh, that's really cool. But you'll see someone who's like literally during an entire video. 30, 40, like filming the entire thing. And I think that's where you get into like...
And that's okay if you keep it for yourself, right?
When the fuck are you going to watch that, dude? You know what I mean?
Jerry's like, no, it's not. It's not okay. No, it's not okay.
I don't usually argue with you, Eric, but in this case, what the fuck are you going to break? Hey, I got an idea. This Friday night, let's make some popcorn, right? Let's pull out the fucking fireworks display.
It's so funny.
6-7 months ago, and let's sit there and watch it on television.
What is so funny is that
Jared, they put it on TV.
Old,
yeah, they do. They broadcast them on TV on the 4th of July.
Nobody's fucking doing that. I guarantee people. There's hundreds of thousands of fucking videos of fireworks display. They never get watched.
But you know what?
It looks like a banana peel. Remember that?
I can't imagine something I would rather do with my time. It's like, about 7-8 months ago, I recorded the fireworks display.
Would you like to see it?
Yeah, we could sit there and hear my muffled fucking cell phone version of the fireworks display.
I was saying when you're 85 years old, maybe you'll want to look at that.
I don't think so.
What I was trying to say was, this happens so often on this show.
Totally
but I did notice this when I was in Deep Creek, and it wasn't. Now listen, it maybe is something I probably should have recognized a long time ago, but when you're experiencing a moment and it's generally outdoors. And it's basically you're rejoicing internally about how unbelievably awesome it feels or it looks, the sky, a landscape, just something natural in nature. It's fucking impossible to take a cell phone picture and capture the essence of what you try. Case in point, we're at Swallow Falls, one of my most, one of the most favorite places in my entire life. It's my whole childhood, and I'm reliving it again, standing on the same rocks that I stood on all my life. And here I am, like I've done countless times before, with my camera, taking a picture of the fucking fall. And I'm looking at the video back in my hotel room, and I'm looking like, this is the stupidest goddamn thing I've ever done in my life.
It's like that with the fireworks.
Because, same thing. But the grandiose nature of experiencing something in the world, especially landscape related or nature related, it's impossible to capture with a cell phone. Even a DSLR with a wide angle lens, you take the picture, okay, great. It still doesn't give you the feeling that you're standing there being immersed in it, right? Yeah. So why do we fucking do it? And we know that, but we fucking do it. Right? We do it.
Oh, the moon looks so cool tonight, and it's like, dude, it's like this big, like orangish green, like
all
it's
pixelated, all pixelated.
It's nothing. Like, but you can't even tell it's the moon.
But that's my point, though. Isn't that kind of a commentary? Like we're fucking trying to take a snapshot of like some of the greatest moments in our life, which have to be experienced. Really?
Yeah. I think the most enriching that is maybe somebody's like having a day. And they're like, God damn, I need a vacation. And they might come across your picture. your picture on social media and it's like, I've never been there. That's a good idea. I never thought about that.
She always has the positive.
I know she is really good. And
so good.
My thought, I was thinking as I was like, that person who needs the vacation, but maybe doesn't have like, you know, the resources or the time to take it, they're just going to resent you.
Oh, see, but that's what I mean.
I think that's true. I think that's true.
Or they could say like, "Oh, I really like Eric. I'm glad he's having a good time."
Yeah, I like your view better. That's good. That's better.
Yeah, the envy thing is like real strong though. You're right. And over the stupidest shit. I mean, this is like a 2-hour drive south. I mean, you could do that in like $50.
We should have just all. We should have just all DM'd.
Let's go film
Eric.
down there. Let's go film
Dude,
down
we should have just all gone and been like, "Hey, Eric,
we should have just all DM'd him and been like, Eric, we were free and you didn't invite us. Thoughts on that?
Sorry.
How about the last time Jerry and I went to Deep Creek? Was it the last time or the time before? And Paul was down there. Remember? Just like randomly, he was there. We all had breakfast together.
Oh, you always see someone you know.
Before.
Yeah, it was the time because it was when we were just there by ourselves. I want to say.
Yeah, you always see someone you know down there.
It's I've never had that experience before, and it was just like randomly, like he ended up being there the exact same time we were. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, we met him for breakfast.
Did you ever have that horrific feeling that someday you're going to turn to your parents? I love my folks. I love my dad. Complex relationship, but different kind of guy. But I'd always say, I'm not like my dad. I'm never going to be like my dad. My dad is his own unique thing, and I'm my own unique thing.
I've become a lot like
so
that.
here I am now, really like becoming, I'm down there. And the thing that I used to mock about my father was he was like this big outdoorsman. Loved the outdoors, and he'd be fascinated by going to these state parks, the Appalachian Trail. He hiked a good portion of that by himself.
That's awesome.
But he would always make a big thing of like going into museums and all this shit. So, you know, I'm like kind of bored. I'm like, you know, I'm not a big beach person. And we're at the one place where there's actually a sandy beach. And I'm kind of sitting there and there's a building over there. And it said some kind of nature thing. I'm like, so I wonder. And like for the next 20 minutes, you know, Natalie can't find me because I'm in here looking at fucking stuffed skunks and stuff and stuff. And I'm like reading like captions on this shit. And I'm looking at this like, I'm looking at this one thing. It's like a cage. There's got to be some kind of snail in there. I have no fucking idea what it is. But I'm trying to find. But I'm
was you in there just staring at
But I'm
this
trying to
empty
figure
fucking
this.
cage?
I'm looking for more. And then I'm wondering, oh, there must be an upstairs in this place too. And Natalie comes in and goes, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I go, oh my God, I've become my dad.
Awesome.
Do I have tube socks on? I mean, you just naturally like evolve. And I think you're something to that genetics thing. I'm like,
what were we talking about last night about being crotchety? Where were we?
Oh, I'm definitely crotchety.
No.
We were at the gas station trying to get gas. And it was like this new age, weird looking space age fucking gas pump,
New
right?
age.
And I didn't push it far enough in. And I'm out there like, what the fuck is going on here? I've been out here for 5 fucking minutes trying to get this thing to work.
And the lady
she just
inside.
looks around. She's like, Joel's like, you have to push it in all the way.
No, it was the lady inside that was yelling at me because apparently they were supposed to be closed already. And she's like, you know,
because it was 10:01 and this lady's got really important plans. She's got to get the hell out of here right now.
And so she's like, you know, I don't think he's pumping it right. And so she's telling me, I'm telling him. And then, like, you know,
it was it had this weird plastic cone. If you go to some of these new Get-Go's, pay attention to the gas.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Make sure you push it all
the way in.
Can you imagine?
So you don't get scolded.
That's like me being from Cannonsburg. They put in, instead of the old fashioned meters, now you have the kiosks, right? And there is a large amount of elderly in Cannonsburg, and they are losing their minds in Cannonsburg. No. They're like, I don't know my license plate number, and I can't walk from here to there, and the sun's in my eyes when I'm trying to do this, and I'm used to doing $0.25, and now it's $2, and like, I mean,
I could see.
Yeah, that would make me mad.
Right. So, I mean, anything that is hard for us, and we're more used to rapid change and everything and getting used to things changing. Yeah, but I was staring at a
stuffed skunk and thought it was fascinating. What the fuck is wrong with me? This is not the Eric McKenna I remember.
It could be fascinating.
It's just not. I mean,
Jerry's struggling with the gas pump.
I would have
reading about his stuff.
Yeah, but I would have walked past that.
Empathizing with the elderly who can't figure out the new meters.
It's been like a year, and every single time I run into a person from Cannonsburg that's like over a certain age, they're just like, these new meters, huh? Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, have you guys ever been to Pittsburgh at all?
Yeah. There was an aviary at this place, and I actually thought about walking over there and looking.
Yeah, why not?
It said Wilderness Aviary.
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh, we should. And Natalie goes, no, we're not going in there. I'm like, oh. And I was realigned. Oh, okay.
Well, and honestly, like for me, like the whole gas station thing, like I was appalled at the fact that there was a gas station closing at 10 p.m. I was like,
Oh,
the world
do we live in?
World's
like, is
gotten
everyone closing
smaller.
at 10?
Yeah, in that regard. There's no 24-hour anything anymore, right?
Sure, even a lot of Walmarts now close down. They always, a lot of them used to be
did that.
24 hours.
It's slowly changing.
Giant
Eagles.
Eagles.
The hours are starting to get a little more expanded.
I don't remember the last time I saw a place that was open 24 hours, like any kind of grocery store or convenience store.
Well, a lot of places don't have like all the staffing.
Sheetz is, right?
Yeah, I mean, some gas stations still, but that's just it. As a get-go, wasn't open past the same time as the grocery store was like closing, and I was like, "You're going to tell me that the grocery store closes and the gas stations at least stay open for another hour?" I was appalled.
They can't find anybody to work.
I've been having a hard time with that because I am used to being like a night owl. Like I do everything like very late, and
to avoid people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why we were there.
Yeah, the grocery stores, like if Giant Eagle was open 24 hours, I was like,
used to be in Robinson.
Yeah, because I'd go home and take a nap first sometimes, like after work, and I'd go out like when there was nobody there. Like it would be me and the stock people. Oh, man. And I'd be like, this is awesome.
Grocery shopping at 11:30 p.m., whether it was Walmart or Giant Eagle. I mean, for Walmart, it was fantastic because here's the thing. There's not a lot of people in there, so you can get it done relatively quick, and the sightseeing was unfucking believable.
Because the people that would be,
the few people who were there were worth taking a gander.
Oh man, it was fun. They would come up from West Virginia. I'm sorry to be stereotypical, but they would come up in these station wagons and these hoopties, and it was just unbelievable.
I remember hearing a lot of these out of the way places like West Virginia, and I'm talking like way out. Yeah, I mean, where there's just not a lot to do. That's like Friday night, like. Put on your best studs.
Well, what does it say about me? I'm out there sightseeing.
Put on like
I got nothing to do.
Put on like church clothes.
Hey, how many times did we go to West Virginia Eagle?
If that's
like,
our church clothes,
I'm
really scared.
That was our outing for like the evening.
I was about to say,
when we
welcome
were
to old age.
Like I feel like that was kind of like the shenanigans.
When you were not old enough to go to bars and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That
was good times.
Makes anything more fun.
What were you saying?
I was just saying, like, when I was, like, at that age where you're, like, too old to really be, like, you can drive, but you're not old enough to get to a bar yet and stuff like that. Didn't want to go to bed. You were just like, Walmart's open. So you go, like, stuff like that. I haven't been in a Walmart in, like, over 10 years. I won't go in one.
Yeah, well, I've this new delivery thing has got me really spoiled. Like, I have all my Target shit delivered now.
Yeah, my parents do that.
Walmart shit delivered now. I'm not dealing with people.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, that's not good either. I mean, that's kind of the problem now. I think we're just the convenience of it all has made social media has kind of like made us not congregate like we could.
I get that, but how many meaningful life experiences did you have at your local Walmart?
True. Like, what are you really missing out on? Yeah.
But I mean, are you getting enriched scrolling through Instagram feeds?
There's a joke that I make with my parents because
it's just all crap.
They're all crap. Man, life sucks.
In-person crap, online crap,
Biden
social
time.
media crap. It's just all crap.
We're honest on this show, friends. Yeah, figured that out.
There's a joke that I make with my parents because they're both retired. They live out in the country and have like no neighbors. And then they were doing the
envy them.
They were doing the Walmart thing before the pandemic. Then they were pissed during the pandemic because everybody was doing it and they couldn't get a spot.
Their time slots.
Yeah, they couldn't get their time slot to go get it. But they don't really like. There's times where like my dad, who he's changing in his older age, and he'll be like watching and he'll be like, look at that rabbit and watch it do this, and he'll watch it for like a long ass time. And so the joke I always make with them if they do something like that is like, you guys need to get into the city a little more. Like maybe you guys need to see some concrete. Maybe you need to see another person beside each other. Yeah,
mix it up a little bit.
And the dogs.
Well, I'll tell you what, my 91-year-old, she's kind of like my grandmother. She's like my grandfather's second wife. She just sent me a picture, like
she's
literally
91?
The one in Florida.
She's about. Well, no, she's in Kansas now.
Okay.
So update, and also update. She's got a lake and lots of ducks and geese to watch, and this is like kind of like her thing now. And so she just sent me this picture, and I'll tell you what, she's been telling me about them for a while, and so now I finally got to see them. It is pretty spectacular. There are like 20 to 40 geese a day that like come through, and like she gets and so she does this picture, and they're like all in a, and I'm just like, that is impressive.
Oh, yeah.
No wonder she's so entertained by this. This is I'm entertained just by the picture.
Do you ever see the meme? I think I posted it like a long time ago, and it's Manson, and he's like looking all like he has a glass of whiskey and he's looking out the window.
Charles or Marilyn?
Marilyn.
Is it the same person?
Brian. And he's looking out the window, and it's like me waiting for the birds to eat out of my new bird feeders. And I joke with my parents about that too, because they'll set up all these like hummingbird feeders. Where are the hummingbirds? They should be here. And then they'll watch, and it's like a watch pot never boils. Mom and Dad, you're waiting for these hummingbirds to come.
It's like they're deliberately they're looking back like, no, they're still looking. We're not going to go over there yet.
That's like our cats. Like, so we got these new kittens, and they're about 5 months old. All we want is for them to like sit with us and love us.
They're assholes.
And they are. They're just little
cats are assholes.
They're terrorists.
Yeah, but these ones in particular.
They are really.
I love them, but they're fucking.
And they do love us. Don't get me wrong. Like, they do love us. They sleep with us. They purr when we pick them up. But it's like they purr and they put their paws against your chest and try to get away from you while they're purring.
They're fucking crazy.
Like,
they just want to be everywhere,
they're just
all the
time.
Crazy.
They
they jumped on his head this morning. It was.
They get up on the table like the runner, like they're both underneath this fucking runner. Like the runner's under the table, the one's hiding underneath of it, and the other one's just jumping on top,
running up,
like
and doing like
no
somersaults.
Respect whatsoever.
No
respect.
And we haven't done a great job at disciplining them either. So that's.
We got to get a spray bottle because they're really getting out of hand.
It's like that someone suggested that to us early on, and we were like, we don't want to do that to them. And it is hard
now
because
I want to do it.
They are so cute, and so it's like as
Jerry's sitting at the bottom of the steps of the super soaker.
I put up with it for 2 months. I'm waiting for them to get out of this rambunctious phase where they just want to cuddle and stuff. You know, get to the good part. No,
it's not happening.
There's none of that. Nope.
No,
2 mornings running, I had to kick them out at like 4:30, 5 in the morning pre-dawn. They're just. I'm in there fucking knocking my phone in the trash can. They're fucking just
chewing on. So
they're chewing on my leg while I'm trying to sleep. No peace at all. No respect.
I had a can,
no respect,
like a bubbly can, and they knocked that over this morning. Like, and then we took Candy to bed the night before last.
Chewing on the fucking.
You guys eat in bed, man. It must be a Mulligan thing.
We like it.
We do. So for a while, we were struggling a little bit. You know, he and I have gone through a lot in the last few months, and one of the ways we've come out the other side of this is that we sometimes have dinner in bed now. Actually, a couple nights a week. A couple nights a week.
Pretty much.
A couple nights a week. You just gotta find what makes you happy. Like you were talking about, like your marriage. You're like marriage is hard, and like you got to find happy ways. You guys went on a vacation together. You connected.
Stuffed skunks.
You do your stuffed skunks. We go to bed at like 7:30.
Yeah, we get into
dinner
bed
up there and fucking put on Lord of the Rings. We've been watching Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, what's all that?
It's been really good for us.
I remember like it was usually like Thursday nights. I'd go to KFC.
Oh, I remember you talking about this.
I'd get like a Crunchwrap Supreme. It's a Taco Bell KFC. So I'd get a Crunchwrap Supreme to eat in the car. And then I'd get like a KFC bowl and like those double down sandwiches. And I'd go to the car wash, drive through the car wash and eat my Crunchwrap Supreme. And then I'd go home and bed and I'd eat my KFC. And my ex would always come home and be like, "Are you okay? Are you like really depressed?" And I'd be like, "Right now, I'm just so happy." And it would be like because it was like just that ritual of like eating in bed.
Yeah,
KFC.
There is something really like indulgent about, especially like a full meal. Like on the weekends, it's more like snacks, like popcorn and candy and cupcakes or whatnot. Those kind of things are the weekend foods.
You're an adult; you can do what you want.
Yeah,
8 o'clock at night, I'm like ready for bed.
Yeah.
She'll make dinner. We'll take dinner up there. We got a big king size bed. We got up on my dresser. We bought a little TV. We got our DVD player up there. We've been watching Lord of the Rings every night.
Just making a nest.
It doesn't sound as bad at all.
I'm just like, man. Like I said, everything out there is crap. Fuck social media. Fuck the world. Fuck going to Walmart on a Friday with my best Sunday clothes on. Like, This is where it's at for me. I want to be here in bed, eating dinner.
I want to leave these parties early. I don't want to be out late.
Yeah, I want it to be 8:30 on a Tuesday night. I'm already in bed in my jams.
Yeah.
Eating a pot roast, being terrorized by my cats.
I mean, and this
doesn't sound like a bad life.
We do kick the cats out sometimes. You know, a lot of times, like if we want to eat in peace, like if we want the chaos, we'll let them in.
Yeah.
They scratch the door?
No, they do. They sit outside and meow.
Of course they do. They're little assholes.
They are.
Yeah, by definition. They're all assholes.
You know what, my brother...
These ones in particular, though.
For my birthday, he just took me a month ago to... it's on McKnight Road. It's a cat rescue, Kitty Queen cat rescue. And you just go in, you give a donation or whatever, and they let you just go in and play with cats for like...
On McKnight Road?
Yeah, I believe it's on
McKnight.
McKnight.
You got a new night spot.
How do we not know about this?
Somewhere, yeah, I believe it's on McKnight.
Now we'll get our cats being mad at us.
Yeah, so you go in and there's like this big room of cats that are ready to be rescued or whatever. But you can just go in and like hang out with them. And it is funny because they're very much like it's a room full of cats. And there's like maybe a few of them when you walk in that are like, "Oh, happy to see you." The rest are like, "Oh, you're here." Awesome. But then they have a kitten room. And then they have a couple like little individual rooms, and they'll be like, "That's Callie. She doesn't get along with any of the other cats, so she's in like solitary
in timeout."
Yeah, so she gets her own room. But it is really cool. You get to like they have things to play, like toys and stuff you can play with the cats with, and you just get to spend cat time. Yeah. But yeah, they're definitely they could care less if you're there. Like they want to play, but then they're like, "Okay, you're as boring as the people that were in here before. I don't give a shit." Do you have treats? Then we'll talk to you. But if not...
Maybe they actually just have the human race summed up correctly, and we're just too goddamn arrogant to understand it. Maybe we are as boring as...
That's the next one.
Boring as a board.
Right.
Okay, so let's do a right turn.
Okay.
This is a tough one. We've attempted this on prior shows, but as part of a different discussion, so we're going to talk about it intently here. And I am hitting all three of them with no advance notice, so it may take a little bit of time for them to formulate their opinions on this. But I want you to look forward into the future 5 years, which is a fucking yeah. You gotta do this 5 years, and also 10 years. I want to know in 5 years how we're maneuvering as a society in regards to social media, and I want to know 10 years from now what does society look like in regards to social media and how we integrate. Well, are we actually heading toward a virtual dominant reality? Because right now I think they're both still weighty. We're figuring out this virtual thing, but the real world is still weighty. It's still calling us, right? But I think that's changing. Every fucking day it's changing.
I'll be honest, I hope that we're not. I know from what I understand that's kind of the plan with Meta, is that you can have possessions that aren't possessions, and you
mean like a $70 sweater for my avatar?
I don't
kind of thing?
Like not even that, but like I've seen things advertised where it like projects your whole television, where you don't even have a TV, you just have like this little like strip, and it projects like your entire TV is just kind of projected on the wall, where you don't even really have a television anymore. Okay. I've heard a lot about like smaller living spaces, like digital possessions and stuff like that, and just
digital possessions.
More people wanting to spend time in virtual spaces and not really hang out in physical spaces with people anymore. I don't know.
Is this actually not? Is the technology still too young for this to actually happen yet, or is it actually starting to happen now?
I believe it's starting.
Yeah, I mean they have like VR. Like VR has become much more advanced, and so that you can like essentially like maneuver in like a virtual space more easily,
which I think is cool. But like,
and that's better for like gaming, and that shouldn't be like the focus of like your whole world.
If there's like a business meeting where you can't meet together because you're spread out all over the world, like there are practical applications for it. I don't know, the whole shift towards like this more virtual life where everything happens online. I don't like to sound like a cantankerous old man, but I don't know. With what we're already seeing with what social media is doing to us socially, like it just really seems like the icing on the cake that just completes the downfall of fucking first world civilization for me. And a lot of people I'm sure would disagree. They'd be like, oh, it's a brave new world. There's tons of things that you can do now. There's more that you can do with your life. But like, the more we have at our fingertips, the less we do with it. And I don't know why that is. We have supercomputers in our pocket, and we're just not using. Some people are, but for the most part,
aren't.
I just don't see us using this technology to contribute to our lives in a way that's meaningful. And I don't know. It's kind of a bleak prognosis. I'm kind of being a naysayer with all the technology that's coming in and stuff. Maybe we'll find a balance, you know what I mean? I really hope that we see sort of like some kind of renaissance of true human interaction, of just giving a fuck.
Yeah.
So I think they're starting to, I don't know if it's Meta or these other smaller software companies, but I believe it's being sold to us now. It's starting to be on the premise of like, there's a commercial with a daughter and a dad going fishing together, and they're on two sides of the country, and they're showing how they're interacting with each other. They're visually in this cartoon land where they're fishing and all that stuff. I guess, yeah, I can see there's some value to that. We're also seeing commercials now where a paraplegic person is able to go into this world and have the use of their arms and their legs and go do things that they can't do in the real world. So I get that too. And I don't, like we've talked before, there's always going to be balance. There's always going to be a positive and a negative with everything. I get it. My biggest fear is that we have devalued, or we are starting to devalue the reality that we know, which I say is reality. This
Physical
tangible
reality.
thing here, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that's blowing me away more than anything is throughout my life, I've always thought that the one thing, even bigger than money and bigger than power, was sex, especially on the male side. Like, the sex gratification dominates and has, and for fucking centuries dominates a lot of life. We don't want to talk about it in a civil setting, but the reality is the sexual drive dominates a lot of life. I even am now believing that sex is being minimalized. The importance of it is being minimalized in the apathy and the passive nature of the generations that are coming up that are just willingly giving themselves away to this virtual world. I never thought I would ever see that happening, because I thought, sex was such an important, visceral, heavy part of society. But even sex, I think, is being marginalized and de-emphasized through the submission to the virtual world.
Well, I think that, like, with the younger generations especially, like, there's already been like a redefining of like what sex is, because a lot of their interactions take place initially like online. And so, like, whereas before, when you might have had maybe you would exchange like Polaroids, or like, it was more difficult to like create kind of like a long distance interaction, especially as a younger person that was exploring something. Whereas like younger people now, I feel like in some ways it's like accelerating them through some of those developmental phases quicker than maybe like they're prepared for. And in some ways I think it's kind of like dulling their receptors for things a little bit too soon, in the sense of like just like being overexposed a little bit, and then like, kind of coming, and this is just all speculative, I have no science to back this up, by the way, but just that, potentially that like they could kind of like almost like accelerate through those developmental phases more quickly, and then get to like what would maybe have been considered a more like normal age of like sexual like exploration. And by then they're already kind of like, and there's like, they've talked about there's like a huge research, like, or a huge surge of like asexual, people kind of like coming to the surface or coming out as that being their predilection or whatever. And I think that there is an element of that could be attributed to just spending a less time focused on physical reality, because, even though you could like make the case for the fact that like sex is like an emotional experience, it's a spiritual experience, it's a psychological experience. if, people are having that experience more and more virtually, and then, also focusing a lot of their other experiences in the virtual world and kind of becoming less and less attached to their physical experiences, that like, potentially that could affect. I mean, it's, look at like just how many studies have been done on like video games and sex drives, you know what I mean? Like, and all these different things. And like, I don't know, I think that there is definitely like, I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I think some of that could potentially be a little bit of social engineering, in the sense that if you gear people towards a more virtual world, that maybe they'll be less inclined to, procreate as often, and maybe that'll be population control. Who knows? That you can spiral out into a lot of other kind of like speculative.
For sure.
Just in the same sense as Jerry was talking about, like smaller living spaces, like, there's a lot of like what they call conspiracy theories, which are now supposedly like termed as like a sickness or something like that. There's this whole like movement that like there's like a conspiracy theory like like campaign to get like people away from having their own theories on conspiracies or whatever, but that like that there is a potential for the fact that like it is advantageous to some people to have the majority of people consuming less physical space, consuming less physical resources, creating less physical people, that there are people in positions of power that would benefit from that type of world.
So is it more about, making the unwashed masses conform, or a slow burn to conformity? Is that a word?
Potentially.
I feel like too, humans, just the younger generation in general, are biologically very different. The environment has changed them. They eat different things than people ate many years ago. Things are farmed very differently. Things are grown very differently.
Well, they eat a lot of chemicals.
Yeah. So, I mean, hormonally, they're not, they're...
You think that's killing a sex drive?
Yeah, I think that has almost like what Julia said. I think biologically, I think they're rocketing past certain points where they may have focused or found more of a sexual energy, or what they are in that respect. And then also it's just a different time, so they're not as focused on securing money for the future or securing money for a family. Right now they're talking about like labor shortages and how bad it is, and there's been a labor shortage for quite a while. And when we think about even baby boomers, baby boomers, there's a lot of them, right? And they're at retirement age, and it's besides there not being the numbers to take over what they're retiring from, there's also just so many more virtual jobs and technical jobs, and that's what some of these people are going into. So when they're talking about the virtual world, and like even not to scare Jared, because I know he talks about it, but like they're talking about robots even being helpful in like the healthcare industry and things like that, because we're just so short staffed.
Yeah, there won't be any manpower.
So yeah, even to help that out, or home care, it's hard to find home care for your loved ones. So to know that you can go to work or you can do whatever and live your life, and there's a robot there to care for your loved one, I guess. But like, I think, if a younger person is also biologically inclined to not go towards like, I don't really need a ton of people in my life for interaction, and then that's the world they live in as well. It just seems like, that's just burned into their brain from a very young age. You know what I mean? That's all they know. Right. Yeah. I think we always thought like, oh, we'll need people. We'll need to hire people to do stuff for us. We'll need to interact with people. We'll need to interact with service providers. And amongst that, you make relationships, and I don't think they're even always thinking that way.
For one moment, talking to my son on the podcast, as I mentioned prior, when I did a father-son podcast with Rocco and his son. Sorry about that, Gabe. Don't kill me. For a moment, I felt pretty good. I'm like, you know what? It might be a good thing that these 20-year-old kids are not sex crazy. They're not like driven by this need to have a girlfriend, this need for that. I said, because I know I made a bunch of dumb fucking decisions as a teenager by letting my societal worth be deemed whether I was dating someone or I had a girlfriend that was going with me or whatever. There was a currency involved with the social aspect of dating that I think was very common in the era that I grew up, and I'm sure eras prior. And unfortunately, it puts kids in positions at an early age they're probably not prepared for, and they also can end up making some decisions that affect the rest of their life as well too. So I thought for a second, well, maybe it's a good thing that they're taking their time and they're figuring this out, and maybe they've got it figured out. And then the other part of me says, man, what if de-emphasizing sex and relationships and all that, it's just being de-emphasized in society? Like, what's that going to freaking look like? What is that going to look like? And maybe it'll be just fine. And maybe I'm comparing it to what I know to be the way it was. I don't know. It just seems frightening to me because again, I don't want to lose the humanness of who we are. Like the human experience to me is this tangible world, the emotions, the touch of humans. I don't want to lose that. And I got a feeling that's kind of where we're headed, And I don't think we're going there. Maybe we are going there willingly. I don't know. But not everybody will go there willingly.
Yeah, I feel
not
the same
everybody.
way.
But
I feel like life happens around us. There's just so much.
This isn't reality, man. I can't get there.
There's so much about experiencing life that I don't care how good the graphics are. I don't care how interactive it is. Like, yeah, I agree with you. It's just not life. And I don't know. I get that, there's a lot of people who are really excited about the technology and that the things that are possible. I rely on what I said before. Like, the more technology we have, I don't think it's affecting society in a beneficial way. And I don't know what the solution is because the technology is going to continue to advance, And it's
we end up with two societies?
I mean,
that's
you
pretty
might have like a
dystopian,
spectrum,
but
yeah, that kind of to me like leads into like more science fiction where you have like people who are like kind of almost not regressing necessarily, but like completely rejecting technology. Because I mean, think about it, like we could have that society right now where there's people who just like, no, I'm not getting a smartphone. No, I'll never get social media. And like you do to a point, you have people who have like preferences one way or the other, but I don't know of any movement aside from some maybe fringe groups that's like straight up no technology, no phones. Because here's the thing, the more it progresses, even people who don't want one, they end up getting one for work.
100%.
You know what I mean? It gets so integrated to our lives to the point where if you want to be a member of this society in any way, shape, or
you're
form,
almost forced to do it.
Yeah, or you're not forced to, but if you want to participate in society, you will choose to, and most people do.
Yeah.
They give in.
Well, and I mean, what is the other option? That's the thing is I feel like, unfortunately, like there are more and more elements of that you have to or that, an individual would have to look at and be like, what do I want to participate in and where, and how is that going to limit me if I choose not to, you know what I mean? And it's like I said, even just like the small, like little aspect of like how I'm looking at like getting back into promotions and how much do I want to put myself out there and all these things. It's like just recognizing that like every path you take at this point, unless you are, even if you are a farmer, because I feel like even like someone like that's living pretty much like, unless you're doing like the kind of like self-sustainable thing, like if you even if you are just like if you're in agriculture, the agricultural business, I'm sure is largely computerized. Like 100%. You have to like you have to be able to like upload your inventory and all these other things, and so there's no real way to completely like avoid technology. So it really becomes like a matter of like, what's your path? You know, what's your passion? You know, like, what are the things that like you really want to focus your time and energy on, and how do like various aspects of technology and social media and all these things need to be integrated into what you want to do.
Right.
You know
We
what I
still
mean?
have choice. It might be a hard choice.
Yeah.
And there might be things you are left behind in. And
That's a fear of humans, I think, generally, though, is being left behind. You know, like
Yeah.
I saw my father struggle like 15 years ago when the iPhone came out, you know. He was fascinated by it. He wouldn't admit it. But that having a screen that would, you know, and then like by 2010-ish, 11, when I was on my second or third Android and showing him all this cool stuff, I could see that he felt like he missed it. Like he felt like I'm just gonna keep my flip phone. You know, there was and I'm trying to fight that as I get older. I don't want to get left behind. Like I will tell you, I just don't. I want to keep current as long as I can with what's going on.
because it gives you choice.
Bingo.
Yeah. You can choose
100%.
whether or not you have your iPhone now, instead of like, I don't have the choice because I don't know.
Yeah, and I generally love technology. I think it's been unbelievable. This is a great era to grow up in. I just am a little uneasy about the reality thing. Like, because to me, it's just technology's always been a tool, right? You used it for either pleasure or you used it for work. Or it's a tool. But when you meld social media into the day in, day out lives of all of us and how we interact with that and start putting values on that and then start calling it a reality, because I didn't come up with that phrase. I'm just repeating people calling it virtual reality, right? I mean, that's been around. That term's been around almost 20 years. So I'm just afraid that the reality we know at some point, maybe in a generation from now or maybe 10 years from now, doesn't exist the same way, or it exists, but it's not as important.
Well, I mean, just look at where we're already headed in the sense that, like, you know, you can get an implant. You know what I mean? People are, different companies are basically like choosing sometimes now to have like a chip put in so that they can swipe and not have to carry a device. You know what I mean? Like and more that creates what would be kind of like, if you looked at it like from like the science fiction kind of lens, sort of like a bio synergy with technology. And like we're basically already there. You know what I mean? People we don't realize the capabilities, because not all of us are like utilizing everything to its full, potential. But like, we were talking about that on the Alien podcast. Like there's like a piece of like alien technology in like every cell phone or whatever, like some kind of,
no doubt.
Like what were we talking?
I think it came from me. I would have to research it a little bit more.
Regardless, like there is like, elements of our, current devices that are like kind of almost like, I don't know, otherworldly in a way too. Yeah. Like, and like we don't question it. Like we just don't question the fact that like these things can do so much. Like, and like, they're always watching, always listening, just the integrative like aspect of like, that your phone can communicate with your car, and that it does so like sometimes without your permission, and all this stuff.
We've relinquished our privacy for the convenience of what technology, or the assumption or the illusion of the convenience that the technology has brought us. We've relinquished our privacy. We have no privacy. I mean, yes, husband and wife shuts the door, turns off the Alexa, whatever, and you could probably create a little cube for a couple hours of when no one else could really get to you. Could be. But generally, as you maneuver through your life, your idea of having privacy is pretty much gone. You're getting videotaped for when you go in the convenience mart. You could be getting videotaped on the highway. Your phone's on all the time. Well, people can find out where you are.
We talked about Kennywood the other day. I didn't even tell you, like, and like literally like that day I started getting ads on my Instagram.
That's not a foul. That's not a coincidence.
No, of course not.
Your devices are listening to you, and I mean, you can say it's Big Brother conspiratorial. It could be just a way to monetize things so they could sell more ad space. I'm just saying it's happening.
Right.
We've given it up.
I think sometimes too, it's like there, like you said, there's a convenience aspect of it, or a feeling of comfort and convenience in it, but there's also like a safety aspect in it too.
Maybe it's how it's being sold to us, the safety element.
Yeah, it could be, but I also feel like, we were talking about Vegas before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for as much crazy debauchery goes on in Vegas, it's actually, a pretty safe place to go on vacation, because there's video cameras everywhere. everywhere, like from out on, you really, it would have to be a pretty long con if somebody wanted to kidnap somebody or hurt somebody or anything like that, because it would be solved pretty fast. And so really a lot of people feel very safe when they go and, send their kids there, whatever, No,
I get it. We've given it up, though. Don't you think?
To a point. I mean, here's the other thing. Who really gives a fuck? Just because who's... Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that, a lot of our digital data gets saved and stuff like that. And part of me is like, man, our grandparents would be rolling over on our grave just on the premise of it alone. You know what I mean? But who's going through my text messages?
Yeah.
Unless I've done some shit that maybe I shouldn't have been up to.
Yeah.
For the most part, you know what I mean? Like, yes, there's this huge... And this is kind of like sort of 180 degrees from where I was at not long ago, where I was like, absolutely, our rights are being infringed upon, our privacy is being infringed upon. But I guess, not that I'm condoning it or that I'm happy about it, but I think the peace I've made with it is who's sitting there checking up on me. Like, I don't like that we have this window into our lives now that, someone could use my locator to find me or something like that. But, like, at the end of the day, there's so many people in the world. Like, do I really think...
It's overly paranoia.
Not paranoia. I think it's just taking a look at the reality of it. Like, who is sitting there going through all my data, listening to all my phone conversations...
They don't have much of a life.
Looking through all my text messages, like the sheer volume of fucking digital data that just gets transmitted and received. Like, I don't know, maybe they have like some kind of, okay, you texted a word, you know what I mean? So Homeland Security gets to review, you know what I mean?
That's what they do.
And I get that. And like,
but I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah, to a point, I'm kind of like, well, that is an infringement on our privacy. I'm sure our grandparents would be like, whoa, we always had freedom of privacy, you know what I mean? Like, but overall, I look at it and I'm like, I really don't feel like someone's sitting there over my shoulder with these devices and these video cameras and stuff like that. Like, for the most part, I'm just a blip on the radar, and no one's looking into me and paying attention.
Well, it comes back around to like what we were saying about the ego thing too. They used to say that, psychologists would say one of the most unhealthy mindsets to have is that nobody cares about you. Now they say the most unhealthy mindset to have is that you are the center
of this
so
much.
Yeah, that everybody's watching you,
clocking
listening to
your every
you,
move,
clocking
judging every little thing that you do.
Right,
you
right.
nailed it. You nailed it.
So
Yeah.
We're not that important. I mean, we are to the people who care about us, but like in the broader world,
there's too many of us, and it's like you said, unless you're doing something wrong, which you shouldn't be.
Right.
Maybe it's just something we don't need to worry about as much, or like you said, I come to peace.
I think it's something we should keep an eye on. For me, it's not going to keep me up at night. You know what I mean?
That's
I don't necessarily
best way to put it.
I'm not some NSA agent's favorite television show. Like, I don't think they're sitting up at 11:30 at night reviewing all my text messages and watching all my private and looking through my private photos and stuff like that. Like,
it's such
I just don't see it.
It's such a crazy balance. Like, I think about how, to the positive, all this data can be used to keep another 9/11 from happening, or a big terrorist event. If the data is being used that way to keep us safe, fantastic. But the converse is.
Yeah,
there's ultimately options too with all this data for things of nefarious natures.
And I do think we should keep a watch on it. I don't mean to...
It's a balance.
I don't mean to espouse a like an attitude of complacency or just like, fuck it, let them do whatever they want.
It's easy to get there, though.
It is. But I mean, what the hell? What am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? And like, I do believe in the right to privacy. I don't know. I'm to the point now where I guess maybe I'm getting a little bit older and I don't have that rebellious spirit in me. Like, you should have access to none of my data. Like, do I like that they probably have access to it and that they save a lot of our data? I know they were when Snowden blew the whistle. Not necessarily, but like, I just have to get to a place where I have some peace with it and I go, hey, I doubt some stranger is sitting there peeping through all my private photos and all my private correspondence with someone. Like, there's a lot of people on this earth. Like, it sucks. We give up a measure of personal freedom in order to live in a society where we live with other people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't love it, but
yeah, it's a weird landscape though. Like because I mean, all three of you know, I said from the day one, so the landscape is clear when it comes to me. I am a capitalist. I have, I center right. I lean that way when it comes to money issues. That being said, the last year or so, I've really thought about like social media and capitalism. And I think the social media, just specifically social media, it does kind of, to me, kind of stink of the worst of capitalism because it really is putting competition with all of us. And we talked about that, whereas we're all competing for likes or currency. I think that's the worst of capitalism when it's completely turned the average experience into now this competitive thing that doesn't need to be.
Well, in addition to the era of competition and pitting people against one another, it's also a lot of times focused on the worst, the most toxic, the most detrimental.
100%.
Facebook even had
100%.
I think it was like a year ago, maybe a little bit over a year and a half. Facebook had a whistleblower basically come out and say that they'd done a bunch of studies and that people pay more attention to negative emotions, you know what I mean, on posts, and they get more engagement that way. And they outed Facebook basically saying, look, they're contributing to a very, not just a negative experience, but unhealthy behaviors online simply because people spend more time with their phone engaging when they're fighting with each other, when you're looking at political stuff that's very polarizing, you know what I mean? Like when you have this hot button, like controversial stuff that in general, it's not people getting along. And for companies, in specifically this instance, Facebook, they blew the whistle and said they did a study basically saying that they're contributing to people being at each other's throats and pretty much that they're contributing to a toxic environment on their platform, and that it's being done intentionally because they're observing that the more toxic interactions get people pitted against one another and fighting with each other in comments and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I get it. It's serving your interests. It's keeping people using your product. But like, that's kind of where I come back to, like, if this is the effect that it has on our society overall, it's not good. Like, and for me, I can't control what other people are going to do. I can't control what Mark Zuckerberg's going to do. I can't control what anybody's going to do on their Facebook. Like, for me, like, I've taken a pretty big step back from social media, and like, I don't know, I'm just more focused on my life, like the things I have going on in my real life. I don't know, I don't spend a lot of time on social media anymore, even just the mindless scrolling. Like, I catch myself every once in a while. I'll give myself like 5-10 minutes. But I used to like fucking just
do a deep dive too.
20-30 minutes, like especially when I'd first get up in the morning, and just really kind of like want to be in that like mindless oblivion. And that's something that I think I really realize about social media, is that it's almost like drug use, where a lot of us are seeking that. It's not even homeostasis, it's complete mental blank out. You know what I mean?
So it's not like a dopamine effect?
Just totally disengaged, like completely oblivious. Like when you just look at someone, they're just scrolling, and they're not even like liking anything or really reading into anything, just mindlessly like seeking this total blank spot where I don't have to interact with anyone, where I don't have to think about anything in my life. And I think it comes back to some of the things we hit on earlier in the episode, where people are just not happy in their lives, you know what I mean? And like for me, with pretty much everything, I'm to a point where I'm focusing on my personal relationships in my life. Like, that's what's important to me, you know? I've really done, I don't know if you call it a social media cleanse, but I don't spend a lot of time on social media anymore. Like, being successful in my personal relationships is the most important thing to me. Like, that is the one thing that's lasting for me. That's the one thing that's fulfilling. Like, all this other shit, I'm not going to look back at the end of my life and be like, God damn, do you remember that one fucking post? I had like...
Remember that meme?
Oh, yeah, I got like 75 likes on that thing. It was like 2 months later, and I was still getting reacts from it. It's just like, it's vapid, mindless. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like I'm advocating for no social media presence. Like, I get that it can enhance your life in some ways, but like, for me, what I'm looking at is kind of like the comparison we made between the whole push for more of a virtual reality and spending more time in virtual spaces versus the physical world. Like, the real relationships, the real personal connections that I have with people in my actual life, that's what I'm focused on. Like, that's what's more meaningful. That's what's more important to me. Like, that's more fulfilling to me in my life than having a post do really well and getting a bunch of likes on social media, or like, I don't know, just following people's pages and being real active on social media. Like it doesn't fulfill me, you know?
I think too, like you're in it with humans, your energy has to go somewhere. And we noticed this a lot during quarantine and pandemic time, that with you saying that and you having balance in your real life and fulfillment in your real life, you're less likely to be that person that is going to get on social media and want to fight or put their,
because he doesn't value it as much. It's not, so why fight about it?
Well, and I think too, like people have this, everything turns into like the energy has to go somewhere, and it's going to turn into a ball, and you're going to throw it at somebody on social media. So I feel like if you're actually living in your own reality and having like real experiences, real fulfillment, when you do get on social media, it's not going to be like, oh, I'm so mad at this person for saying this, and I'm better than them, and I need to like, get into this fight all day with them.
It's true.
So
I used to get into those fights with people. I used to end up going back and forth in the comments and stuff like that, and like I don't find myself doing that anymore.
And that's why
I don't miss it.
That's why I think like quarantine was so emotionally driven, because people weren't leaving the house. They weren't seeing a lot of people they normally see. They
fighting
weren't
by COVID and masks and
So I feel like
protocols.
And then you're watching.
I got sucked into that too. I remember fighting with plenty of people online about whether we should be wearing masks, whether it was constitutional to, and obviously it was because it was private businesses, but whether it was right to force people to wear masks in public and to keep people at home against their will. And I remember getting sucked into a lot of that stuff. And
like I said, energy has to go somewhere. And if you're not dispersing it throughout your day at your job or scheduled to be somewhere, or, talking to this person or talking to that person or whatever, it's going to become a ball, and it's going to be thrown at somebody.
For me, I think a good metaphor that just kind of clicked for me is obviously like, everybody has needs. We all have human needs. We have very basic needs, like the need for food and air and water and shelter, and pretty high up there in most, when you look at those mapped out, like different psychology schools have like the hierarchy of needs and stuff like that. The need for human connection and the need for human, like personal relationships, once you get past like the bare subsistence for survival, that's usually placed pretty high up there. That's important to us. We're very social creatures.
Yeah, for sure.
So if that's a need for me, same way I look at it like as anything else, like good quality of food versus not good quality of food, good quality of air versus not, like clean, healthy drinking water versus water that's got like high lead content or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if I have a need, there's like a good, healthy, like intake for this need and like fulfillment of this need, and then a fulfillment of this need that's like less healthy for me and maybe even toxic, So if I can compare it to food, like interacting with people who I know in my real life and spending more time focusing on my closer personal relationships, that's like healthy food for me.
So as
healthy, nurturing food. And my time spent on social media, engaging with people I don't know that well, and just spending hours.
Because really, is that bringing you value in your life?
That's like empty.
Really?
When they talk
Popcorn.
about, that's what I mean. For nutritionally, that's my empty calories, and that's not really like, it may satisfy a momentary urge to feel connected, but it's not really fulfilling me as a human being. It's not benefiting my life.
And to be fair, like going with that metaphor, like from someone who's been in the nutrition,
might be
lightning,
from someone who's been in like the nutritional field for this long, like it's definitely like there should be a budget in your daily intake for fun foods. You know what I mean? Like, and honestly, like there are a lot of theories. Like people like look at like weekend foods and like just like sweet, whatever. Like the old school food pyramid used to have like at the very top was like sweets, butter. You know what I mean? Like that's how they
grains.
Used to.
Remember, it was
grains were at the bottom.
Yeah. Thank God they flipped that.
Them,
Yeah. But either way, the point being is that just like there should be room for that in your life.
Yes.
But it should
proportional.
But it should be the smaller part. And I think that one of the things that we're seeing is like the societal sickness that we're seeing is that has inverted, and like that so much of our interaction is
it's addicting.
Yeah, is like this kind of like junk food, socialization. Whereas
they make it so easy. The platforms make it so easy.
Yeah,
it's built into your phones, your mechanism, your habits. Now, I mean, everything is kind of and again, sitting down with my son and Rocco's child at that age. I did it again, Gabe. Son, not child. Just seeing that they said to us, well, you gave me a phone. Well, my son told me this because you gave me a phone when I was in 8th grade. I've only known a phone, Dad. I used to play with your phone when I was 5. Mm-hmm. You know, I grew up with this thing. I don't know much more. Now, I want to talk about virtual versus the real world in the context that I was going to say I was very glad my son played baseball. I wasn't crazy about how competitive baseball parents were at that age. I was happy my kid did great, and it was fun to coach. I loved to coach because I would de-emphasize competition. That's a whole other story. I had a lot of fun doing that. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, that was a tangible, physical, exerting activity that was not related to this phone. I was happy my kid was into something. My daughter with gymnastics. They were out doing stuff. I could see how easy it is to hang out and don't be involved in anything and just jump on a video game. Mm-hmm. I get it. My overall point is they grew up with this. They're 20, 22. All they know is this, right? Y'all are younger than me, but not that much. 10, 15 years, maybe whatever. But that you're in not a weird location, but compared to my son, you're like in that middle spot, right?
We are. We're the last generation.
You kind of remember the before times.
Yeah, we're pretty much the last generation that remembers life before the internet, because the internet started to hit when we were all like, what?
14, 15.
Yeah, like 11, 12, you started hearing about it.
It was a slow roll. It was like...
Yeah.
Do you remember? 13, 14, do you clearly remember
became a household
before 95? Do you remember what life was like then? Do you remember? And it's tough for me because I was supposed to be an adult before 90. I was 30 years old in 95 to 29. So I went through my 20s without this. It's fucking great.
Well, and to be honest,
I mean, the interactions of humans were really simplistic.
Yeah.
I will say that, to be honest, it for us at least, I can say that it kind of would depend on what you were doing in your 20s, because Jerry and I were in our early 20s, were partying pretty hard and didn't really have cell phones. We didn't have a house phone. Mm-hmm. So literally if you wanted to hang out with us, you had to show up at our door. But that was just our personal experience. And I remember hearing about MySpace around that time period, but I didn't even have a computer. So it was kind of, and I was waitressing, you know what I mean?
We were living a different kind of life.
That's what I'm saying. But we were living in an era where you could live a different kind of life, and that you basically could kind of not really be online, and just sort of have your life exist the way it is.
In the early times of the internet, right?
Yeah, because we met, when we first met, we both, Jerry always said that I rescued him from online chat rooms, because I was I would be like, come on, hang out with me, come out and hang out with me, in person. Mm-hmm. And he was doing a lot of stuff online at the time, and I was kind of just not as into it maybe. Mm-hmm. But it was still around in our high school years. And then I would say, after I kind of got my shit together in my 20s and had a computer again, that was around when I got a Facebook and whatnot. But I remember posting our wedding photos at 10 years, for our 10-year anniversary, and people being why am I just seeing these now? And I'm I didn't have a Facebook when we got married. I literally
mm-hmm.
didn't have a Facebook until I think the year or two after we got married. And it's not that Facebook didn't exist. It's just that I, like you said, it was a slow burn. I was mm-hmm. kind of I didn't even have a MySpace because I kind of missed the boat on that one. And so Facebook was kind of the next thing. And I was I don't even know if I care about it. And then it was one of those things fuck it, I'll get one,
Yeah. And you were when you first got Facebook, you were only talking to your friends,
mm-hmm.
your small group of friends. And then it became so social.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, how do we know everybody that's on our Facebook in person?
I don't know most of the people on
exactly.
Facebook. That's why I don't spend much time on Facebook.
I've had multiple musicians, some local, some national, over the past decade. When I think when Android, and by 2012, 13, 14, you were able to take decent quality videos, lower high definition. So all you would see, even back then, you go to a concert, and a very famous musician told me, he goes, Eric, it used to be lighters, man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now all I see is cell phones, and some of these morons even turn their flashlight on the front where it's shining. It's shining.
That's what they ask you to do now.
I was about to say, now they want you to do that.
Lighters. Put your lights on your phone.
Well, that wasn't happening with this band back in 2014. But my point was, it's we are, I think, maneuvering in a way look, this thing I did really didn't happen if I don't not just have a picture or video for myself, but if I don't prove to other people that I actually did this.
Yeah, I mean,
is that, or am I just making something on?
No,
maybe I could be wrong.
If I don't post it, then it didn't happen.
And just to kind of like, I feel like summarize, like, and kind of sum up what we're saying, I think that, you know, we are all aware of the fact that we're moving towards a different world. And just to kind of like encapsulate this topic, this is my little wrap up on it.
Let's hear it.
My little wrap up on it is that, like, I feel like generally speaking, I think there will still continue to be a certain element of choice as far as like how involved you get. But it's like, you know, what Cassidy was talking about earlier, there is going to be a recognition of what level of participation you want to have and what that path might look like. And so, like, if you don't want to have digital real estate, like how they're selling, like, you know, NFTs to hang up on your walls and all these crazy things, you don't have to, but you're forfeiting the ability to interact in that sphere of the internet. Mm-hmm. And whether or not that is important to like your path, whether it's your creative path, your, you know, professional path, whether it's just a personal path of interest in what you value as far as what kind of life experiences that you want. Okay. I think that it's definitely going to be it will continue, at least honestly, in my mind, for the next 10 or 15 years. I think it is too big a stretch to say that like this like whole shift is going to happen to like all virtual.
Within a decade. Do you think it's too soon?
Because
I don't think we're going to see that either.
We forget that, like, you know, even though Pittsburgh is a small metropolitan area compared to like, say, Chicago or New York or whatever, think about how much of America is like, you know, farmland. And that, like, yeah, I mean, these people have computers. I'm not saying that like people that own farms are like, you know,
there's a lot of rural areas for sure. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like,
squeaky wheels are getting the grease, people over here.
Well, there's a lot of value in like real things still.
Yeah,
and like,
I would hope
there is still a lot of value in like the rest of the world. I mean, like, you know, the rest of the world does still value, I think, like real interactions and like real space, and, you know, natural space and whatnot. And the whole like green space revolution and the environmental revolution, like, yeah, there are elements of like virtual stuff that can like create more green society. But at the same time, those same, you know, hippies and whatever else that are kind of like looking at like, you know, wanting to recycle everything.
Sorry.
And
she said it.
Dude, I was joked as being like a gothic hippie when I was growing up. That was like what I was made fun of for being.
I get called a hippie all the time, and I'm the furthest thing from it. But
I'm into it. It's whatever you like. But it's just, I think that like you have to recognize like those people still want to be able to go outside.
Yep. I would hope so.
We're not going
to. You kind of coined it when you were talking about like when you and Jerry first met. There's always going to be people that would rather go out, and there's always people that would rather not. And those people might meet up, they might not. So I mean, it's always going to be. I
think you're absolutely right. I do think it's going to take longer than a decade, but I will warn you. Think about 2010, whatever you were doing in 2010. If you can remember an event remember what it was like in 2010, right? Think about the size of Facebook in 2010 and the impact it had on society. Then, and now compare what the impact Facebook has now 12 years later. It's a pretty fucking big jump.
True, but also consider the fact that like most young people are getting off of Facebook.
Okay,
and it's just gonna.
But I get the point that Eric.
They're churning in Instagram, and
it's going to be the next big thing. It's you know there will be like the next big thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that is a possibility too. But whatever.
True.
Anywho,
did you all have fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't thank you all enough for doing this.
Glad we got back in here.
Yeah, number 9.
It's awesome.
It's hard to believe, man. Number 9.
9 lives.
I personally thank you. And again, just this stupid article, which I didn't think would mean a thing to me because I didn't want it.
It's wonderful.
But I've stared at it multiple times each day here, and it really kind of like not only am I at peace with it, but I'm also feeling pretty good about it. I won't say we're proud, but I'm feeling pretty good about what we're doing.
I think you should be proud of it.
I do too.
You know?
But the essence of what we're doing that really made this entire project valuable is what we have done by really bringing unvarnished and real discussion in a group setting. That propelled what we're doing, I think, especially in the consciousness of the society. So I appreciate it very much.
Woohoo.
Let's just keep doing it. Love y'all, and we'll see all y'all soon. Hopefully they come back and see me in a couple of weeks. We're out, friends.